start with a roll call.
Chair Lane,
Here, I think.
Vice Chair Lerner,
Here.
Commissioner Polito,
Here.
Commissioner Tonelli,
Here.
Commissioner Bryant.
Here.
We have 3 in person and 2 remote. We have a full
Great.
set.
Yeah, another little side note is my dad actually wore this on stage in the 70s when he was a lawyer and trumpeter. And I was so embarrassed. I told him I never want you to be seen in that. And then on a birthday when he was 70, 2 weeks later, he sent me it. So it's a family heritage.
It comes full circle.
Yeah, full circle. That's right. All right. The next item on the agenda is public comments. And what we use the public comments for are for items that are not on the agenda. Sometimes it can highlight something that somebody wants to bring up to us or mention to us about the past actions, or just to inform us about something that we need to look into. I know there's a number of things that are going on parallel to this process tonight. So we just want to make sure that we give a chance to anyone to speak on something that's not on the agenda tonight. All right, we have somebody in the room. Go ahead.
Can you
Oh, it's gotta
please
be on.
introduce yourself?
My name's Joe Donahue. I live on Linden Avenue. We've been here for about 16 years. I think we all love the town and all the landscaping and trees, and I just wanted to make a comment and submit an ordinance update request regards to screening of the front properties. There's a lot more giant kind of cement rock walls going up to a town, which is fine. I think a lot of people, or most people, do a good job of screening it, but there are actually no requirements. Not everybody does. And I like to make sure that that doesn't proliferate. And that people are going to do it. I respect privacy, but at least put something in front.
All right, great. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Lots to talk about. All right, anyone else online or in the room that is looking to comment on something not on the agenda tonight? All right, good. Then we'll go ahead. All right, you got something?
Yeah, can I voice my opinion on?
Yeah, you come up to the front so you're on the recording. It's not on something that's not on the agenda tonight, right?
Oh, no, it's not.
Okay, good. Go ahead.
So,
Go ahead,
I-
introduce
what-
yourself for the record.
so I have, a complaint that I feel that the town of Atherton must have agreed upon previously without any concern about, you know, the consequences on others. So my focus is on 17th Avenue, actually 17th Holbrook. I live on Palmer Lane, 50 years this year, and formerly 15th Avenue. Well, they placed signs at the end of Holbrook that says no right turn onto Middlefield from 7 to 9 Monday through Friday. Okay, well, 15th Avenue, Palmer Lane goes from Marsh Road, is the only direct street that goes from Marsh Road to Alameda to El Camino, Middlefield, so on and so forth. And so for it to be agreed upon that the traffic be deterred, because it's like the flow of water, you know, if you block it from here, it's going to go somewhere else. Without the thought of that, it's going to go to our street. And so I don't even know who proposed that and who agreed upon it. I have my ideas, but I talked to the guy over here, and so anyhow, you know, so
Rada, who would be the right person to talk to about this?
I think I talked to Gomez or Roberto or something. Well, I think I need to talk to the traffic or something.
Right.
So
It's actually borderline because it's unincorporated Menlo Park in Atherton. And so what I proposed actually was that because all these people are actually diverting the traffic light, making the right on the Middlefield.
Yes.
They cut off and go through
Right,
the residential streets.
right.
Well, now it's gotten so bad because now the police are, they get off their motorcycles and are actually pulling people over by hand,
Right.
3 or 4 in a row. And so for every ticket they're writing trust me, now they're coming to our street to make that
Alright.
right or go straight.
All right, so this, I know this area really well because I live over on
Mhm.
Cena, right around that area.
Sure.
So, and I know when they were fixing some of the roads, they made sure traffic didn't come through the neighborhood. But that, unfortunately, that isn't an Atherton's location. That is a county, that is an unincorporated Menlo Park location.
Yeah.
So that sign wasn't actually put up by us.
So
So,
the signs that were put up by you are in Atherton, that are on Holbrook, on the far end of 17th Avenue
do you know anything about this?
in Holbrook,
Yeah, so-
in Atherton property.
All right, for the record, could you say your
Because,
name?
pardon me?
For the record, could you say your name for the record?
Yes, Mike Smith.
Mike Smith. Yeah, I've got somebody here that,
To the transportation.
all right, good. So,
You guys, yes, hi.
yeah. All right, if you, go ahead, go by the mic, so that we can get this cleared up. And introduce yourself too.
This is Robert Ovadia, Public Works Director. This item's in the subject matter jurisdiction of the Transportation Committee.
Yes,
And so he can be referred there.
all right,
I did speak with the gentleman. The signs that he's referring to are at Middlefield Road
Yeah.
and Holbrook.
hmm
The ones in the town of Atherton, which were approved by the council years and years ago. With regards to traffic diversion from Marsh Road, it's actually an issue with the county.
okay. All right, good. So,
He's welcome to come to the Transportation Committee, and when he came into the office before, I spoke with him and referred him also to talk to the PD.
all right, good. All right. So that wouldn't be something that we would fix here, but it's
It's like, the way I see it, it's the town of Atherton's fault that it's happening, right? And I don't know exactly where the line is at Marsh Road and Fair Oaks,
mhm,
where the county line is there.
right.
I think it's right on that road,
Well, the
actually.
best way to fix this is with the Transportation Committee, because we can't take action on here, but the Transportation Committee and the people on his staff can probably direct you in the right place. Because,
You had asked me when I seen you what I would propose, and I had no idea, actually, but actually I do have an idea.
all right, well,
And-
let's take that offline and you guys handle it. And then we've got to go back to the items on our agenda, but I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah.
It
Thank
goes
you.
on the record. Thank you for
Thank you.
coming up.
All week.
How did you know? All right, so anyone else here to speak on an item that's not on the agenda? All right, so then let's go ahead and close the public comment and then bring it to item number 3, approval for minutes. I thought they were very thorough and
Yeah.
accurate.
I didn't see anything that needed to be changed.
Do you want to make a motion then?
I'll move that we accept the minutes from our September 27th, 2023 meeting.
You want to say?
I'll second.
All right, moved and seconded. Let's start with the roll call. Let's start with the roll call all night with the people online, so we make sure that their sound is still working.
Sounds good.
All
Commissioner Tonelli,
Yes,
She's here.
oh, sorry, Commissioner Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Polito,
yes,
Commissioner Lerner,
Here.
Chair Lane,
Yes,
the minutes are approved. Thank you.
yeah, and the reason I'm doing that for the two of you is to make sure that everybody knows that you're really staying engaged and you're all in on the meeting, so that there's no question of that. All right, the public hearing items 4, A, B, C, and are all under the same format. What we'll do is we'll start with an overview from staff, and then there'll be questions from the commissioners to staff. Then I'll open it up for public comment, and we'll start with the applicant in a situation where there's an applicant, and then we'll open it up to anyone else who would like to speak on the item. Then we'll close the public hearing and we'll bring it back to the commission for discussion and action as appropriate. And we'll do that on every time. And now you may hear me say that again, because as I see people pop on or come into the room, I want to make sure everybody's on the same page in terms of the method and the approach. So with that, for item 4A, where we have the 178 Atherton Avenue request, you want to, Rhoda, is this one for you to go over?
Yes,
Okay, good.
I'm sharing screen to go into the staff report. Thank you, Commissioner. This is 178 Atherton Avenue. The request is for a lot subdivision, 3-lot subdivision on the parcels owned by Green Acre Gardens LLC. I do believe when I saw the applicants online, I want to jump into the location and the context map. Let me reduce the screen so you can see it. What you see in green is 170 Atherton Avenue. It's a 3.99 acre lot. What is shown in red is a 1.99 acre lot on 178 Atherton Avenue. The request from the applicant is, and to the commission tonight, is for two actions. They request approval of a lot line adjustment, a subdivision, and both of them are consolidated into one tentative map, parcel map. This is approved by the council, but the recommended action comes from the Planning Commission. The second request is a lot line redesignation of the newly proposed flag lot. Traditionally, a lot line adjustment is a staff level approval. However, with this particular project, we have combined and consolidated the request into one tentative parcel map. What you see in front of you on the screen are the three lots that are proposed. They basically, the entire motion of this tentative map is to merge both the parcels because they're owned by the same owners, and then subdivide it into the blue flag lot is lot 1, the yellow is lot 2, and lot 3 remains the same. Lot 1 and lot 2 are exactly proposed to be 1 acre lots, the minimum required by the subdivision ordinance. Lot 3 is meeting all qualifications of the 1 acre lot for sites that are sloped under 20%. The subdivision and the tentative map has gone back and forth a couple of times between staff and the Public Works Director, asking for will serve letters, the standard requirements for all lots that need to be serviced in an urban area. And we are recommending that the Planning Commission recommend that these lots be approved as they were shown. The second action for the subdivision typically is, in this particular case, comes from the fact that lot 1 and lot 2, as it is shown, is read per the ordinance. The way lot fronts are reviewed are as shown in the exhibit in front of you. For the flag lot, the definition of lot front is what you see in the red line. If lot number 2 is designated to have this as a lot front, it doesn't meet the minimum required dimensions of lot depth and lot width for the R1A zoning standard. In order for that conformance to happen, the applicant is not seeking any variances of any kind. They are requesting that this front be redesignated to the purple line. And the redesignation of the front and rear basically changes the way the house is oriented, as you can see in this, in the blue flag lot. The requirement of these, both of the subdivision and the lot line redesignation is based on a certain set of findings. Subdivision findings are elaborate, wherein we have to make sure that the subdivision is conformance with general law and the chapters 16 and 17, and that the size and shape of the proposed lot are in conformance with the general pattern of the neighborhood, doesn't cause traffic, health, or safety hazard. Generally speaking, with urban infill lots, the subdivisions are they are reviewed in the block and the neighborhood type, and we can see that 3 of the parcels in this block between Austin and Selby have they have flag lots, and this new flag lot that they're creating will add to that mix. The proposed lot needs to have proper sufficient access to the public street. The flag lot that was shown in blue has the 16-foot drive going all the way. The project has been conditioned to receive Menlo Park approvals before they get into the final map, before they get to the council. We can make sure that the access to the public street is approved by Menlo Park Fire. The yellow, the lot shown in yellow is directly fronting Atherton Avenue. And they are retaining most of the existing driveway that's currently there. And so it has sufficient access to the public street. The proposed map and the design are to be consistent with the general and specific plans. We made findings in our general plan, in Atherton's general plan, that is in conformance with the subdivision that is proposed. The site is suitable for this type of development. The type of development that they are seeking is a standard Atherton R1A development for a single family residence. And the only two lots that are proposed to be developed at this point are the flag lots and the one in the front. Basically, what is the resultant of the 178? These two are the only lots that are proposed to be developed. The larger 4-acre lot is not being touched at this point. So having said that, the conformance of the lots and the findings would be physically suitable for the type of development, because R1A requires that they need certain lengths and widths, and they conform to those depths, they conform to the density and the zoning provisions. This project is required to follow all R1A standards, it's condition of approval. At this point, we are just reviewing the map. We are not reviewing any development at all. The site is, whether the site is physically suited for the proposed development is similar to what I was speaking to, the length, breadth, and depth, but CEQA in itself as an exemption category requires sites to be under a certain percentage in terms of the slope. And it is reflective of what our subdivision ordinance says too. The design of the subdivision is not going to cause substantial environmental damage. We are seeking categorical exemptions for lots that are 4 lots and under CEQA, and I will speak about it in the later half of the report. There are other findings related to public health and requests for whether this is the design of the subdivision is likely going to cause the problems. Our ordinance has specifications that cover the requirement for lots in Atherton, and it is reviewed under the general plan CEQA. So we can make findings that it would not be a serious public health problem. So at this point, there are no easements or there aren't any proposed easements as noted in the subdivider statement on the map itself. Both the lots that are, all the lots, any new lot in Atherton is required to, they are required to follow, and they are conditioned to meet all stormwater requirement that the San Mateo, the regional water quality board every lot is required to follow those standards.
So the drainage off the back lot was taken care of by that?
Yes.
Okay.
And they are showing details of the gutter, the bioretention and everything on the map itself.
Okay.
And the director has reviewed it and he has provided comments and conditions of approval. This is standard, and all from our review of these 10 findings, we are recommending that the Planning Commission approve the subdivision. However, we'll have to, one of the critical aspects of this being a feasible lot and not just subdivided on map is to make sure that the redesignation finding for the flag lot is being made. And I'll have to, and Planning Commission needs to make these 2 findings. We are on objective review of the redesignation of that flag lot at the back. Because this flag lot is facing a large 4-acre lot, and it requires to have the front 60-foot setback for R1A, we can make findings that it has very minimal impact to the neighbors by reorienting that house in the other direction. Because most of R1A, all of R1A, when it is developed, is centrally placed for the main house, which is the tallest building. And there is not much of an impact to what's happening in the surroundings as such for now. And so the first finding for the redesignation is to ensure that it doesn't impact the vicinity. It is not detrimental to vehicles, people, goods, or the subject property in and around. the way the flag lot is designed right now, it has very minimal impact on its neighbors because of the reorientation really doesn't make a big impact on any of the goods and movements. It has dedicated access and dedicated right of way to get to that point. And also we need to make findings that make sure that the proposed redesignation is in accordance to the general plan and the purposes of the plan. Some of the goals that the housing goal in our general plan says that one of the goals is to facilitate private development of housing to meet a portion of above moderate income that is identified in Atherton. And this is one of the examples where it meets that goal. And similarly, the other policy also meets that goal. So staff is recommending that the redesignation be supported by the Planning Commission for council to approve. We noticed this is standard notice on all public hearing projects. We noticed 500 feet radius, and so far we haven't received any public comment on this particular subdivision as such. This is what I was talking about for a categorical exemption for CEQA. We will be filing with the OPR notice of exemption for minor land divisions, and you can see that it is very specific to urbanized areas for residential, 4 or fewer parcels, and the fact that it has not been subdivided in the past 2 years, and it has an average slope of less than 20%. The slope on this entire 6-acre parcel is 1.3%.
Right.
So it's not, I think it's specifically for flat kind of land is the exemption. And this is basically it. The applicant has worked with us extensively. We were able to make site visits, and we've had a lot of back and forth conversations and comment cycle with them. And staff recommends that, we approve, that Planning Commission recommend approval for the subdivision and lot line redesignation.
Right.
I can see Commissioner Polito's hand.
Yeah. I want to start.
I'm going to stop share.
Yeah. All
if
right.
that's
yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it is good because I can't see the people until you stop there.
Okay, sorry.
All right. And then we're going to start with questions from online, of the online commissioners first.
Commissioner
you have some-
Polito's hand is raised.
Yeah. Bob, go ahead.
Well, thank you, Rada. It was a very extensive and complete explanation. I'm a little shocked that all this time and money's been spent on 8 square feet.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it have made more sense to ignore that and just deal with the flag lot reorientation and how could we prevent this from happening again? Because I think it's been a huge waste of staff time and a huge amount of expense for the people that want to make this happen. What can you tell me?
Right. I can tell you that when they came in initially, their options were to SB9, which doesn't require a minimum 1 acre. It doesn't require the 175 by 200 lot dimensions that R1A is asking of any new subdivision. They had the options to go down the conditional exception route, which happened earlier this year. The risk to an applicant, they were given all the choices. They bring the request for a traditional subdivision. Unfortunately, and I think the engineer can speak to this, the miss of the square footage on 178 Atherton is just something this is their opportunity to square away a parcel and clean up a map in the same time that they can subdivide, which is why it's not 3 separate projects. It's all under one map, except that it's 3 separate actions. And while it might seem a bit more complex on the staff end time, it's pretty much standard review process. They had their choices and they submitted a subdivision. A traditional subdivision has to have a minimum of 1 acre, Commissioner Polito.
That
And
goes back to
anything
our-
short of that, they are not, we can't even bring it to the commission for an approval.
that-
Well,
because-
what happened to the so-called Atherton acre, which is certainly much less than 8 square feet less than a real acre?
You don't
I
know
do,
about
I
the
think the Atherton acre, I'm not aware of. I can tell you that chapter 16 of the ordinance requires 1 acre, that's 43,560 square feet, and I need to see that.
Well, the Atherton, I live on an Atherton acre.
Okay,
Okay.
I know
Which
that,
means that my property line goes halfway into the street.
okay,
So, yeah, so Bob, I think actually, this is one of the things that we've got to tighten up on now that there's more interest in lot splits and doing
Yeah.
it. I think the ordinance has to be changed to make it a little bit easier, because right now R1A is R1A, and if you don't comply, then you're out of compliance, and we would be too. So I think the whole thing comes down to how might we want to change the ordinance to make it quicker and easier.
and I think if I were to put the applicant's head, and I cannot, because the choice is them, they are the ones that are applying for an action and request, and it's their time, and it's our job to just review what comes in and guide them. A traditional subdivision has to go through this route. To be honest, now they have clean parcels through this map.
Right.
Whereas in the past, they just had 2 separate lots, which didn't round up.
Right.
You know, it's probably better for them.
Well, I'd like to see us create some changes in our codes so that these things that
I agree.
are a fraction of 1% variance don't require all this time and effort and money and what have you.
Mhm.
Right.
And then I had one other question. I saw on one of the drawings that the flag lot required a 20-foot wide minimum access point, and yet this is 16. Can you explain that to me?
So that is one of the conditions of approval I spoke to you about. The minimum driveway width is under the radar of Menlo Park Fire District approval. And one of the conditions tonight for the applicant is to get that approval letter from them before we go to the council for the next step.
Okay, so.
So Menlo Park wants 20 feet and they're proposing 16.
Yeah, no, we don't know what Menlo Park standard is. And so they will review the map and give them a yay or nay based on what the tentative map is showing.
All
I
right, thank
think, yeah, the clear path, that is what is one of our conditions of approval on tonight's letter.
All right, thank you.
Tom, did you have anything?
So if they have to widen that to 20 feet, is that 4 feet going to make a difference now?
Yeah, it would, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they theoretically could approve the lot line now all the way down as an exception right now, and make it easier going forward, right?
They are showing 20 feet. I think it's all the other details that are in there that need to be managed.
Okay,
And they have the leverage to get to that point, and that's why we are conditionally
Right.
I got it. So
looking
they'll
at
just
this.
have
Okay,
fewer
just-
shrubs along the side or whatever.
Needed
Yeah.
to have that explained.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Tom, do you have anything before we go forward?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
That's anything? Anything? All right, good. So let's go ahead and then I'll go ahead and open up the public comment section. We'll start with the applicant. I think the applicant's online,
I
correct?
think the applicant
Oh,
is here.
good. All
Oh,
right,
there we
very
go.
good. All right, good. Very good.
Again, good evening, everybody. My name is Jim Toby. I'm with Lee and Braze Engineering, and I'm the civil engineer on the project. I'm the one who helped put the plans together you see in front of you today. And I can answer a couple of the questions you guys have already brought up. In terms of the driveway, I think the confusion is the land that we're proposing to give for the flag lot is 20 feet. The roadway is 16 feet.
Oh,
So there's 2 feet of
Okay.
undeveloped land on each side that could be used for landscaping and fences and everything else. In terms of the requirements with Menlo Park Fire, Menlo Park Fire requirements is a 16-foot wide roadway. So we've already looked into, we know what their requirements are. We just haven't been able to get them to give us an official okay back, even though
Okay.
we've looked into, we've talked to them. We've submitted plans to them. We're just in that waiting period, trying to get them to get to that in their file on their desk.
all right.
So,
Very good.
the question about the 8 square feet, this is a very interesting one. So back when these lots were created, they were intended to be, 1 acre lots or bigger. So this was intended to be a 2 acre lot. However, when we went around and did the boundary survey of this property, we realized real quickly, and all the subsequent maps that have been done and recorded with the county also demonstrate that the original surveyor made a mistake by 8 square feet.
Hmm.
That's, it is as simple as that. He made a mistake when subsequent surveyors over the years, and it's shown on many maps, hey, we realized this was actually a little deficient. So we're here to correct that error right now so that we do have these 2 lots be exactly 1 acre each. I know it's kind of sounds silly when you're saying, I'm going to take this huge piece of property and move it over half an inch. And that's exactly what we're doing. But that's literally the only reason we're here to do that, is to correct that one small error that was done by a surveyor 80, 100 years ago, whenever these lots were originally created before land was even developed out here. So.
Very good.
But other than that, we're here to, you've heard a great presentation by Rada. We've been working directly with her, directly with Robert for many months now, trying to get this exactly how everybody thinks it should be properly done. And with that, I'm just here to answer any questions you might have.
And the address will still stay in, 172 or 170A, or what's it going to be?
The address is the building's purview, so whatever they choose,
I
I
know,
think.
but it's going to be on the same street. right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
that's
the
what- that-
the fronting is Atherton
I
Avenue.
don't
Right.
want the change front to change the address.
No, no, no,
okay.
it would be
It'll be
Atherton.
off-
Avenue.
Everything's off half nav.
All right,
Yes.
good. All right, any other questions?
No.
All right, good, we're good. Thank you.
So much.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining the
Yeah.
8 square feet too.
It's a strange, it really, strange sign. It's so
I've got-
easy to confuse everybody.
I've got the same
Thank
thing.
you.
I got the same thing on my 1959 property. Our fence is about a 2 feet, a foot and a half over from what the line says. And nobody knew it until we just found it out. All right, anyone else here to speak on this item? No one online? I'm not seeing anybody's hand wave. Nobody's jumping up and down. All right, I'm going to close the public comment section, bring it back to the commission for discussion and action as appropriate.
I have nothing right now, no.
I don't either.
My answers, questions have been answered.
I agree. All right. All right, good. So we're ready for a motion?
Okay, I'll move that the planning commission recommend that the city council approve the tentative parcel map and the lot line redesignation at 170 and 178 Atherton Avenue based on the findings outlined by the planning commission, subject to the conditions listed in the draft certificate. And I move that the planning commission finds the project to be categorically exempt pursuant to SEQA section 15315 minor land division, and approve the attached notice of exemption for filing.
Maybe online want to second that?
Yeah, I can.
All right. Mr. Polito, second. I just want to make sure
Commit-
you stay on the marquee on the minutes.
Caroline, if it pleases, may I make a comment, please, or
Yes.
suggestion? Would you like to include in the motion direction to staff to return to the planning commission, separate, distinct from approval of this project, to explore administrative avenues for resolving similar projects that are minimally deficient from the 1 acre standard?
Yeah, we don't need that in the motion, but it's a good thing to do.
Okay.
We won't do it in the motion, but we will do it as a stop item in the staff report point of the, is that all right?
Yeah.
All right, let's do it that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Co-
Yeah.
Commissioner Polito,
Yes.
Commissioner
Oh.
Bryant,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonelli,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lerner,
Yes.
Chair Lane,
Yes.
the project is approved. Congratulations.
All right, good.
Thank you.
9 months later, you were for 8 square feet. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for working with us so hard on that. All right, thank you. Good. And it's a nice property. The garden of 178 is amazing. It's like something out of a picture book. All right, thank you. All right. The next item is item 4B, and that is a number of different trees on, is that correct? It's a 5 heritage trees for a JDU on 97 Holbrook Lane. So we'll start with the same process. We'll start with the staff report, questions, and then we'll open up for public comment. Got this one. Don, you got that one? All right.
Very good. Good evening, commissioners.
Again, I've got to make sure we get our money's worth out of you.
Yes, that's right. This next project is a request for a tree protection zone exception at 97 Holbrook for 5 coast redwood heritage trees for a new JADU and a garage. Applicants and property owners at 97 Holbrook, Kevin and Winnie Wen. are with us today. They'll be able to help answer any questions you may have later on at the end of the presentation. This TPZ exception is for a JADU and garage to be located at the front of the property. This project will be part of a full site development of the lot, including a new single family residence and ADU. Some important notes about this project and the property. The lot is located in the R1A zoning district. However, the lot is 0.48 acres, which therefore maintains a smaller dimensions than the average R1A 1 acre lot. And still, this project is well within the acceptable building envelope for the lot and complies with the general development standards for residences within the R1A zoning district, which is very good. And with that, I will invite our town arborist to speak on the project before I provide some concluding remarks. So Sally, take it away.
Good evening. So this applicant came to me maybe 6 months ago or 6 months to a year ago, and they asked for a few of the redwood trees to be removed. I denied that request because these are healthy trees. So
Very
the
well.
applicant has submitted this TPC exception. Because it's a JADU, it has to be attached to the current or the proposed house. So they weren't able to have the JADU in the back portion of the main buildable area of the house. So they can explain further why this would be the only location to put the JADU. And so I worked with the client to come up with this. They wanted the JADU to be a lot closer than 6 times, but we came up with this proposal for 6 times because the trees are healthy and because this lot is more like an R1B size of a lot, which is the code for R1B is 6 times. I feel like I could recommend this based on they need to do a few things like in the 10 times TPZ zone, hand dig only. I did want to note that I did receive 3 to 4 inquiries on the site. They're not all public comment, but they wanted clarification for the project. Most people thought this was tree removal and they were against it. But once I explained to them that no, the trees will be preserved, and that they're building in JADU, most people were agreeable to this, so.
Right. I saw that.
But most people were against the tree removals
Yeah.
because they're located in the front of the lot. You can see them from the street.
Mhm.
They're
They
big.
add nice screening, so.
Right. All right. Any questions for anyone on staff?
No.
Anybody online have a question? All right, could you pull up all the pictures again? Take off the screen. Thank you. All right, very good. So I'll go ahead and open up the public comment section and we'll have the applicant come up. There you go. Thank you for waiting.
Thank you.
You go ahead.
Good evening.
Yeah, good evening.
My name is Wenli Wen. My husband Kevin Wen. We are both owner of 97 Holbrook Lane. So in the narrative we submitted, we mentioned that our family places great importance on living together and building cherished memories that will last a lifetime. In order to do so, the approval of the TPZ exception holds immense significance in our lives. This exception is tied to the potential creation of this junior ADU on our property, and I would like to take a moment to explain why this is so vital to us. The approval of the TPZ exception is a crucial step in ensuring the well-being and quality life of our beloved family member, which is my father-in-law, Kevin's dad. A few years ago, he experienced a stroke, which has significantly impacted his daily life and mobility. As a family, we have rallied around him, striving to provide the care and support he needs to lead a fulfilling life. We believe that the addition of a junior ADU is not just a luxury, but a necessity for his well-being. The one-story junior ADU and the adjacent garage have been thoughtfully designed to cater to his specific needs. Credit to our architect, Inc., who is also on the line. The close proximity of the junior ADU to the garage and yard is a key element of this design. The ease of access to the outdoors, as well as the convenience of having essential facilities within reach, will greatly contribute to his comfort and independence. So now we ask for your understanding, empathy, and ultimately your approval of the TPZ exception we seek right here. This decision has a profound impact on the well-being and happiness of one of our own, and by extension, on the fabric of our community. We hope that you will join us in making a difference in the life of someone who means the world to us. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you.
clarification. Thank you. Thank you. Wait a minute. Any questions? No questions. Thank you. Go ahead.
See Commissioner Polito's hand raised.
All right, go ahead. Bob,
Well, first of all,
do you have a question for her before
There's
well, I have-
also,
I have a comment.
well, from her, about her testimony?
Correct.
Okay, good.
I thought it was extremely well done, and I applaud her efforts there. And secondly, Eric, you know this. Redwood trees are not native to our little area. And so kind of along the same lines that I just talked about with going through a lot of effort for 8 square feet, I also think that we spend way too much trying to save redwood trees that are in some ways destructive and certainly not native. And I can't imagine having this family not be able to do what they want to do because of a redwood tree.
All right, thanks. Is that it, Bob, for that one?
Yes, sir.
All right, and I saw a hand up in the room.
Yeah,
Is there somebody online too?
no.
All right, good, then go ahead.
Here, just a minute.
All right.
Just in case.
All right. Go
My
ahead,
name's
introduce
Dave, this
yourself.
is Susan, and we have the property next door.
Uh-huh.
And I just was made aware of this from the announcement of the council meeting. And so going down and looking at it, I'm seeing a pretty large development with the second story and 2 added units. I mean, that's what is proposed. And this is going to be facing the street, Holbrook, as far as the garage and the JADU.
Right.
And there's a proposed, well, there's a landing for parking in front of the garage that they want to keep.
Mhm.
So I'm just curious about the design plan, because from Holbrook, looking at this, you'll have a car parking lot, a garage now,
Mhm.
and then a very small portion is facing for this JADU. So are there, I mean, I just became aware of all this, and so are there design approvals that have to be done?
Actually, the only, as a town, we don't get involved, we don't have any sort of control over the design of the home itself. We have control over the height and the footprint on the property. And this complies with both. So, and it goes back to the history of the towns. I've been on the planning commissions where you get to say, hey, wait a minute, that design doesn't work in this community, or that color doesn't work. We have none of those in this town. So the only things that we can regulate are where the footprint of the home is, making sure the height isn't too high. And protecting trees, and also the nature of whatever screening would be required to help on privacy going forward. But there's nothing that would, this complies with all of those.
Here,
It complies with all those.
okay.
All right, thank you. Thank you. But thank you for bringing it up.
About what this is,
Yeah.
'cause it was kind of
Right,
a surprise.
Yeah.
And this is the first I was able to meet,
right,
the actually ones,
Right.
formally, so I
all right.
kind of want to know what's going on.
All right, very good.
All right.
Well, I'm sure you'll be in touch with them even more now. Anyone else here to speak on this item? All right, is there?
we had, do you want me to get them? We have some headphones.
We do have assisted listening
Yes,
devices as
right.
town planner,
I
so we can grab that for them
Right,
really quickly.
Right, very good. So I'll wait until she gets that.
I
Wait.
see
Oh, we have a
2
couple
residents online. waving
couple of
their
hands up
hands.
too. Ann, why don't you go first, and then
Okay,
Dave, you'll be after her, okay?
okay.
And make sure your mute's off. There you go. All right, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. So we are actually on the Menlo Park side of the property in question. And I sent an email earlier in the day. So I think, sort of our main issue here is if there's going to be a junior ADU and a garage going in, it's going to sort of, I think, be fairly close to our house. And then, we were just interested in kind of understanding a little bit about the fence rules, like, because the fence is quite low right now between the two properties. And so it'd really be kind of we'd lose a lot of privacy with the proposed building.
Okay, all right, so, all right, thank you. And Dave, you want to go?
Oh, let me unmute him.
Yeah, take your mute off, Dave.
Yes, okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for calling on me. Yes, I'm David Clark. My wife and I live across the street from our new neighbors who I haven't met, and I'd say my comments are mostly directed to them for their decisions. We moved to our property in 1979, so we've been here for 44 years. And I have to say, when we moved in, there was no trees taller than 10 feet on our property other than two. There were two trees taller than 10 feet. So it was a lot of sunlight. It was really dirt in a building and rural because it was a smaller place. But we had the surprise that people would come to visit us in Atherton. They would drive down the street and they got to our half of the street and they said, there are no trees here. Are you sure you're in Atherton? And so it's, of course, Atherton means a lot of different things. When you talk about Atherton, one of them is trees. And what we found is people that don't live in Atherton recognize that Atherton has a lot of native trees that other towns do not have. And from the air, it stands very clearly that Atherton is green. Other cities and areas around are very clearly delineated by the trees. So the history of our street over the past 44 years has been to grow the trees, and they're now substantial and apparent in size. It takes a day to cut down a tree.
Well, there's no trees.
Trees at our neighbors across the street were significant.
There's no trees being proposed being taken down. There are no trees being affected by this at all. There are no trees being, yeah.
On the agenda, it said 6 trees were to be removed.
No, it's a TPC tree protection zone exception.
It's a 6 by. It's a 6 by. It's the exception is around how close the property can be to the tree. And this is within range of that. There are no trees being cut down at all. So those trees will stay there.
Thanks a lot. And I can say 25 years ago also on my point, the entire street had a tree planting program to plant the street to bring the trees back. And the most popular tree was the Sequoia sempervirens, which these trees are. And of course, Redwood City and Palo Alto are both named after this species of trees, which is native to the area.
Great.
So thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you.
Norm, are you raising your hand too? I see you waving going on there. Norm, did you want to speak too?
To unmute.
Yeah, Norm, if you want to speak.
No, thank you.
All right, good.
Oh.
There's somebody on Ann's line. Did you want to speak too? Take your mute off.
Where are you seeing? Nobody else, I think.
Is there anyone else to speak on this item?
Oh, hi, yeah, I'm Ann's husband, Hunter. I live 607 17th Avenue. Just real quick, so as they build, and they're gonna have to dig down, they're gonna have to dig into the roots of those big trees. Will they not?
I'll let our arborist talk about how we prevent that from happening. Go ahead.
First off, I wanted to state so it's clear to everybody that this proposal is within the main house buildable area. So what they're proposing is something that typically would get approved, but tonight they're asking to build 6 times away from the heritage trees. So our current regulation is 10 times. People can typically ask for a staff exception down to 8 times. However, the applicant wanted to build 6 times away. So
Right.
6 times away is the critical root zone. So typically, if you disturb the roots less than 6 times, then you would have issues. But in this case, in many of the trees, they're only disturbing 10% of the roots. In one of the cases, they're disturbing 25% of the roots of one tree. However, that's still below the standard.
Right.
Typically, you don't want to disturb more than 1/3 of the roots, so 25% is still okay. They'll have to hand dig. If any large roots are found, then they would contact their private arborist.
So this is the procedure, Hunter, that we use on this situation, because we've had situations where people were arbitrarily like bringing backhoes in and digging holes with a backhoe. But when it's within this kind of range to a tree, we require hand digging, which is monitored. And we also require that when they find a root that's of a certain size, 6 inches, what is it? 4 inches, 6 inches?
It's over 2 inches.
Over 2 inches. All right. So if they find a root over 2 inches, they have to contact us, and then we look at it to make sure that it's not going to disrupt anything. So the entire foundation process is something that we've spent a lot of attention on, because we've had it years ago. I've been on the commission for 13 years. Years ago, we had a series of people that just came in and backhoed trees and said, "Oh darn, the tree died." So we took care of that with more rigorous handling of how we handle the roots. So we are addressing that issue very clearly. Plus, these trees are so big that I don't want them to fall on anybody.
Well, yes, that was our worry, is if they did get cut down, we have 2 small children we don't want them to fall on the people who own the house, as well as ours or any of our local neighbors. So they are so big and so massive that they could take out quite a few houses if they did fall. So that was our only worry. Other than that, we're good.
All right, very good. Thank you for bringing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else to speak on the item? All right, no one's rushing to the microphone, so I'm going to go ahead and close the public comment section and bring it back for the commission for discussion and action. I'll start with people online. Tom or Bob, did you have anything that you want to say on this one?
No.
All right. Tom?
Yeah. No, I'm good.
All right. I'm really good, the other thing about this is that we were trying to get more JDUs and ADUs to help us on our housing plan, so this helps us on that.
Yeah.
And our flexibility around that is a little tight anyway, so I'm glad that we could work with you to come up with a good plan on it. And I think the house that will be there will be much improved from the one that's there. And also just work with Sally on screening, because I had personal experience with that on the screening. By the way, for the record, I'm beyond the footage where this is a conflict for me. I'm about 2 blocks away from this property, but I wanted to make clear that it's beyond the spot where I have to recuse myself. Go ahead. Did you have?
Just like to thank the Winds for working with Sally and modifying things and taking the trees into consideration. Sally brought up a good point about the lot being more of a 1B size, where it would be a 6 times situation anyway. So I think everything makes sense on this proposal. Sally, thanks again for your work. For anybody who doesn't know Sally in town, she is diligent about the care of the trees, but knows the limitations for builders and residents and property owners. And she's very, very good about balancing those concerns. And if she approves it, I generally go with Sally's opinion every time. And if she denies it for good reason. Because she knows that there are dangers to the trees and the survival of the trees. But Sally, thanks again for your work. Excellent as always. And that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
I'm ready to make a motion if that's okay with everybody.
Sure.
I move that we approve the request for the approved request of TPZ exception. I don't need any more than that. Do I?
I'll second.
Okay. Tom seconds. All right.
Commissioner Bryan?
Tom,
Commissioner Bryan?
Yes. Yes, I second.
Commissioner Polito,
I agree.
Chair Lane,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lerner,
Yes.
Commissioner Tonelli.
Yes.
This motion is approved. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you
you.
again. Good luck on the project and keep your neighbors up to speed. That'll help. All right. All right. Then with that, we're on to 4C.
Welcome. Thanks.
On to 4C, and the 4C is an exciting process that we've been working on for some time, which is the ADU, the modifications and updates on the ADU rules, which are accessory dwelling units for those of you who haven't been tracking it. We got the overview from staff. Rhoda, is this yours or Sean?
This is
Brittany.
mine.
Oh, Brittany. All right, we're getting. we are
Good
getting-
evening,
we're getting-
Commissioners.
we're getting our
Town
money's
Planner
worth out of
Brittany
everybody
Bendig.
tonight. I love it. All
Yes.
right, good.
So this is an overview of the draft ADU ordinance update. Our recommendation to you tonight, next slide, please, is that you conduct a public hearing to recommend that the council repeals and replaces chapter 17.52, which is the accessory dwelling units chapter, and then amend chapter 17.36, public facilities in school districts, PFS, and chapter 17.60, definitions. So just some background that captures the information in the staff report. In 2019, the state completed a major overhaul of ADU legislation that then trickled down to local jurisdictions and resulted in a major update by the town in 2020. Since that time, over the past 3 years, there have been a number of laws that have added additional updates to ADU law by the state, in addition to some cleanup to the original 2020 package. So tonight we're here before you to both update the ordinance to align with state law, and then as well as update the ADU ordinance to align with the sixth cycle housing element process, because we did adopt a housing element in January, although it is yet to be certified by the state. So we want to make sure that the ADU ordinance reflects both current state law and the package of information that's in our housing element. Next. As you can see, this covers a broad area of changes. And this is why our first recommendation is that you just effectively repeal and then replace the entire chapter dealing with ADUs, because pretty much every single item is changing, ranging from definitions to utility requirements and impact fees, whether or not you can rent your ADU. And really these changes represent a breadth of state law from 2021 through just the close of this cycle in October 2023. And then additionally, like I mentioned previously, we have some changes relative to the housing element programs. So what I've done here and what I've done in the staff report is I've listed all of the topics that are being changed. The staff report also has attachments to a study session that was with the Planning Commission in January of this year, where most of these were looked at in depth, and then a subsequent study session between both the Planning Commission and the City Council in May of this year that looked a little bit more specifically at some of the nuances in these areas and really focused on understanding what the town's approach to a local twist on the ADU legislation might be and what that looked like. So every item here and in the staff report that has an asterisk next to it denotes a special topic that I went at length to discuss in the staff report, just to make sure that we were being transparent with all the changes and enabling public feedback in response to those. The items that I've colored here in orange are the ones that I'm going to briefly go over in a PowerPoint, just to make sure that there's added clarification, because I've heard from at least one member of the public and then an additional commissioner just to get some clarification on certain points. Next slide.
And we did get some follow-on copies of public comment that we were sent that we've gone through too. So just want
Great.
to make sure that we make sure that everybody understands that that was given to us.
Great.
All right.
So the first topic that I want to cover is the maximum number of units. And the reason is because it's presented a major shift, I think,
Yes.
in how we've approached our program.
It's just ridiculous that it would require that, but let's go ahead,
So the way that the state law used to read, and this was part of the 2020 package, is that you got one accessory dwelling unit or one junior accessory dwelling unit plus one detached new construction accessory dwelling unit. And this is the language directly from the state law. It's lengthy. So next. I've deconstructed it here into a simple equation. One ADU or one JADU, subject to specifications outlined in state law, plus one detached new construction ADU, you get 2 units. Next. So this is important because as part of our housing element strategy, we wanted to offer a bonus ADU on any lots that were 2 acres or greater.
Right.
Next slide. So in 2022, the state approved cleanup language that effectively changed that or to an and. And so now the way that the state law reads is that you have one ADU subject to specific conditions, one JADU subject to specific conditions, plus one detached new construction ADU. So you get a total of 3 ADUs on your lot that the state requires us to allow you to have. But then we also need to figure out how to align that new information with what's adopted in the housing element, which sets up this program for a bonus ADU on lots that are 2 acres or larger. So that discussion has yet to really play out at the planning commission or city council level. I don't think we've had public dialogue on that either. So I really wanted to flag that as something for
and it's
everyone.
brand new to all of us, right? I mean, it's interpretation of it, right?
Well, it was a slight legal change from an or to an and that is exceptionally meaningful. And the way that it was brought up to my attention was in a letter from the Housing and Community Development Department of the state in response to a set of standards submitted by Tiburon, as well as the city of Campbell, where they said, oh, wait, no, you need to go back and amend your ordinance because it's not clear and it needs to read like this. So we're preemptively dealing with this before the state tells us that we have to. Next slide.
Brittany,
big-
Brittany,
Yes,
before you leave that slide,
Sure.
can I just ask one question?
sure.
Go ahead.
So what's the distinction that you're drawing or that the state is drawing between when you talk about you're entitled to one ADU and then you're also entitled to one detached ADU? So they mean the first ADU is attached?
It could be attached or it could be part of a converted structure. The nuance also gets into, well, it could be an existing or proposed structure that's converted. So that's why there's some flexibility there with an attached ADU.
So an attached ADU could be an existing home that they partition on the
Right.
space.
So
to
the
make
full clause reads one accessory dwelling unit and one junior accessory dwelling unit per lot with a proposed or existing single family dwelling if all of the following apply. And then it lists a series of requirements, which are also listed in the exact ordinance. So we can take a closer look at that if you'd like, but generally this is what we're working with. And so what I have suggested in the ordinance is that we maintain the bonus ADU program because the town's approach has been to use ADUs to address low income requirements for the regional housing needs allocation within the housing element. And so the way the bonus ADU program is structured is to have a deed restriction associated with those units. And we can specify that those are detached ADUs. And so then the other thing we can look at then is our approach to incentivizing new ADUs to comply with our setbacks, which we also covered in the staff report.
So it's 3 ADUs on 1 acre lot, 4 on a 2 acre lot?
Yes.
And the bonus would be detached.
The bonus would, as I've recommended,
Right.
is a detached, deed restricted low income unit.
Yeah, can you talk about the deed restriction thing a little bit and whether or not really, one, does that hold up over time? And two, how that would play out for a transfer of a landowner, like if the owner owns it and then they sell their property? How does that work? Do you know?
So right now, I believe it's proposed for a 15-year time period. So it would have to be recorded on the property as a deed restriction before a final of
And the
completion was
deed
issued.
restriction would be that there will be a ADU retained?
That the deed would be offered at a low income rent
Okay, got it.
for a
That's,
period of 15 years.
Got it.
And then they have the freedom to do whatever.
if we didn't have that, then they wouldn't really count it as a low rent ADU. Is that how the state would look at it?
It adds clarity that there's some enforcement mechanism to make sure that it's offered as such. Right now, when we say that we have a low income ADU program,
Yeah.
we don't have documentation other than survey responses to point to.
Yeah.
So in the event that in the next year or two, we're trying to say that, look, we have low income ADUs and the state is challenging us on our tally, we have some other program that we can point to where we've documented that fact.
That doesn't force the landowner to require somebody to live there, or it does?
It depends on how the deed restriction is written. That isn't necessarily a component of the proposal at this point.
Okay, good. That's why I just want to make sure it wasn't a proponent of the proposal. Yeah, so, because I don't want to be, other than maintaining the low-income status, I don't want to be restricting the use of the property by a new landowner. You know what I mean?
Well, it would transfer from landowner to landowner over the course of the time period that it's stayed on the deed.
Right.
And I will say that one thing I've noticed in the application of deed restrictions is that, yes, it's going to expire at 15 years, but deed restrictions don't just automatically disappear after their expiration date,
because they're part of the
or
deed.
if a law supersedes them,
Right.
they stay there until a landowner comes in and asks them to be removed from the record. And I do believe that that's its own process with the recorder's office.
That's like a historic designation type process. That same thing happens on a historic designation.
I mean, that's one example of how
Yeah,
that
right.
works.
All right. And if we don't do that, then the state would not look favorably upon the idea that we were actually trying to get a low income ADUs. Is that how it would work?
I can't say that the state wouldn't look favorably on our approach, but I can say that this helps them to look favorably on our approach.
All right, got it. All right. There's been several questions I've received on that point. That's why I want to make sure we're going through it in a little more detail.
Sure.
All right, sorry about that. All right. Right.
Commissioner Polito's hand is raised.
Yeah, go ahead. I can't see him on my screen.
Well, okay.
Yeah, just a quick question, and I should know this by now, but quite frankly, I never got an answer that was clear. If you have an ADU or JADU and you let a relative, as in our prior agenda topic, you let a relative live in there for little or no rent, does that count against our low-income housing allocation? Or is it excluded because of some relationship, as in the problem we have with the schools? If they restrict the use of their lower income residential units to employees, there's a problem. So I'm curious.
Sure. So Town Planner Brittany Bennix, it's important that I think I caveat everything as of today, because state law is changing regularly, as you're seeing. So as of today, a family member that lives within the ADU and is leasing the ADU at no rent or low rent does count towards our low income ADU policy. I think the challenge we're having is that while I know that that is a popular and prevalent experience in Atherton, it's really hard to document that beyond just a self-reporting survey. There's no hard paperwork behind that testament. And how do we force people to tell us that? Do we even want to? I don't even think we want to force people to tell us that. It's a level of privacy that frankly, planning doesn't usually go into.
The designation
With
of an
that
ADU
said,
permit. That
correct. So with that said, we did just earlier this year, I want to say in August, the council had to respond to a grand jury report from San Mateo County saying that the ADU programs don't do enough because it's going to a family member. And we were in a position where we had to argue, well, actually, yes, that is an important role that the town is providing because those family members aren't occupying housing units in other space. And so it's still freeing up the housing market because you're still providing a low income unit. So at this point, state law doesn't prevent that. It's a completely defensible position, but will that change by the 7th housing element cycle? I don't know.
Well, and there's other situations where somebody who's lived in Atherton for a long time wants to downsize and they downsize to their own ADU.
Absolutely.
They take $6 million out of their house, selling their house, and they have a contract lease built into the deal, and they live at virtually the same address for the rest of their life. And then they cash out too. So, and there could be some estate planning around that or whatever. And that would be a very, very possible scenario for this town. So and then that person, would be living in a lower, with $6 million in the bank, but in a lower, an ADU. All right. Any other questions? on that one?
Yes. Should we move on to the next
Yeah.
topic or any other
Yeah,
questions?
I just want to make
Okay.
sure we're done on that one. Yeah. All right, good. You're doing a great job.
Okay, so the next topic that really popped up at the study session between the Planning Commission and the City Council in May was this notion of allowing ADUs above garages. And that's actually a program that is called out in the adopted housing element as something that the town really wanted to pursue. But there was a lot of conversation about how to regularize the built form, because I know that some of the existing detached garages or even the ones that might be proposed are very large and might actually exceed the maximum 1,200 square foot for an ADU. So how do we deal with that? And then there were some current concerns relative to privacy of neighbors, which I think we saw and heard from in the previous item tonight. So the overall objective that I'm hearing from the town is that they want to incentivize compliance with the town's setbacks. And that's the local twist I kind of referred to earlier by allowing ADUs above existing or proposed detached garages, because those ADUs will have to comply with the setbacks of the applicable zoning. And you're not going to see at a 4-foot side or rear setback or even no front setback. So the height that was called out in the housing element for the total of the structure, including the garage and the ADU located above, was a maximum height of 18 feet. I had some concerns relative to the restrictions of that, knowing that the town actually wants to incentivize this type of development. And so I've proposed that the Planning Commission recommend to the council a height limit of 25 feet. And I laid out an argument there that I'm happy to go over if anybody would like to address that. And then the other thing that I'm hearing, both relative to the study session and then also in conversations with members of the public relative to multifamily objective design standards, is concern that these ancillary buildings to the main residence have some uniform roof structure, so that the number of buildings on one site actually read like they're meant to be one comprehensive design.
Yeah, so let me kind of ask a question on that.
Sure.
Because I've thought through this one a little bit. So one of the issues we've had in general was with the new modern design element that's being used in the community. So the intent behind your roof, the roof form was to match a gabled roof or whatever on the house. If we move it if we move it up to 25 feet without somehow attaching it to that thinking, then we end up with the ability for a modern structure to have a 25-foot roof. So it actually gives an advantage to boxy structures over a gabled, you're thinking in terms of gabled and all this other stuff, which I think is exactly right. But I don't want to then say, okay, well, or if you have a modern design, you get 25 feet all headroom. So just think through how we would address that nuance, and that's some kind of a design element, but it would be a design element that we could base on. It's not sort of a capricious development and design aspect. It's consistent with the style of the home that there's being asked about. So does that make sense to you from this end?
Yeah, and I think that we could look at language, especially perhaps after we hear back from the public, because I know that we have some developers in the audience that may have some feedback on that. But generally, the position that I was coming from is that each story is generally going to be 10 feet, and there might be some interstitial space for floor plates between that. And in the spirit of maintaining an existing garage, wanting to give that extra level of flexibility. So we can look at how to sculpt that a little bit more specifically before we go to the council.
And the reason so go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, this is Commissioner Bryant. So, I have a couple of comments on this. I understand the argument about the international sort of flat roof style issue. My proposal on this is to actually adopt the height limit that's in our ordinance for building a new house, which is 2 stories and a maximum of 2 stories and a maximum of 28 feet. The problem with the 25-foot or the 24-foot is that the pitch of the roof on adjacent housing structures could actually require more than just 24, 25 feet. So you're not really matching what's there. And so if you use the same standard that you're using on a new house, you're going to get the same type of roof, the same pitch on the roof form potentially. The other thing is that most of the houses in Atherton are traditional with gable roofs. They're not international style. And so you'd have this, the other concern that I have is that you would have people building these 18-foot or 24-foot high buildings with a flat roof, but they don't relate at all to not to the potentially maybe they relate to the house on the site, but they're not going to relate to the house next door, which is, I think, the point that you're making, Eric. So
I'm actually making about the house itself. What it comes back to is all the hearings we had on the change in that roof height had to do with this argument about a gabled roof or like this, and then people wanted to stack the roof on a flat building on top of that, and we said no, that and they wanted it to be on top of it rather than next to it. And their argument was around where's the edge of the roof. And we went around and round and round in a circle. So all I'm trying to do is prevent that from happening again. So
again, so my proposal is just make the requirement to match what the current code is. Right? To match what you would be allowed to do if you were building a house.
The only question I'd have on that is that one of the considerations we have on a new home would be the setback requirement for height of where the location of the garage is. So
I agree about that. And so whatever that setback requirement would be in our current code would apply going forward.
Yeah, but the ADU ordinance would be a supplement to an existing place. So we approve the garage at a certain distance from the property with no requirement for extra setback because it falls within the gap. And then you stack something on top of it. If that had come before us, then we would have pulled the side of the building back 4 feet, so it doesn't have the impact on the neighbor. So what would happen if we did just existing regular new construction, is that would be a new exceptions. People could come in and build a home, build a place that would fit the setback requirement of now, and then a year later say, oh, we really want an ADU, and it would be a workaround of the ordinance relative to setback. And
Well, I think that you can address that in a couple of ways. So one is you can address it in if you are doing an addition, you have to comply with the setback requirement. And so that means either you shift the garage, or you step back the second floor.
yeah, I agree. I would agree with that, except that is not, that wouldn't reference the height ordinance. That's a separate aspect of the code. So that's all I'm just making a point, is that we'd have to address both aspects of the ordinance.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think that that's correct. So my point is we should just build on what we already have rather than creating something new.
All right, good.
Chair Lane, Commissioner Polito has his hand raised.
All right, good. Go ahead.
Just for clarification, right now, the state law allows an ADU to be built within 4 foot of any part of your property line. And what's the height limitations? Is it 24 feet?
No, state law is 18 feet.
18 feet.
18 feet.
Yeah.
Okay.
So-
That's all, that was my question. I should have known that, but I forgot it.
Well, this process has a lot of rules with it, and some of them were yesterday. So,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
Good question.
Well,
Right.
so I think then, Eric, what that says is that if the garage happened to be built with a 4 foot setback, it's going to comply with an ADU that's on top of it up to 18 feet.
We would never approve a garage with a 4 foot setback.
That's right.
Yeah, so it would be the minimum
10 feet.
10 feet setback. So
Yeah,
any
right.
existing, but
Right. So I don't understand what the concern would be then.
if somebody came in right now and said, okay, we want to have a 2-story building with a 10-foot setback at the maximum height, we would not approve that. We would require them to have a 12-foot setback to accommodate the angle of the view of that property. So that we've
Oh, that's for the main house. We would
Yeah.
not even permit an accessory structure
yeah,
to
that's
go
right.
over 15
That's
feet.
right. That's right.
Right.
It's only for the main
Yeah,
house.
yeah,
Nor should we.
yeah, right.
Commissioner Polito, you have your hand raised.
Well, I meant to lower it. I apologize.
All right,
Sorry.
So,
There's too much going
So-
on this Zoom call.
so Brittany, you got the point. So let's come back
Yeah.
and make the motion.
I do think that it is important to consider all of these elements holistically because as Commissioner Bryant and Geraldine, you discussed relative to the possible of tiering to address height requirements, that might be something that we could fit in here. So the next category I had was floor area exemptions. And at the May study session, there was a lot of discussion about the entry to the upper level ADU, with a desire that, yes, it be ground level entry, or at least the appearance of a ground entry level. And then the stairs going up to the ADU would be enclosed as part of the ground floor volume. So in order to incentivize that, you do need to exempt the square footage that results from the enclosure of the stairs from both the ADU calculations and the floor area calculations that are going to be applied to the garage.
Would that exempt it from the setback or not?
No, not exempted from the
Right,
setback,
okay, great.
just exempt from floor area requirements to give the developer some flexibility in regularizing that space. So the ADU can have and read its own separate entrance, but that it appears at the ground floor level. And then third category I have here is relative to privacy. It was very clear from the study session that there wasn't a desire to have that. So if there was some sort of notching, because of the footprint of the second floor ADU being diminutive to the lower level garage, there was no desire to have any balconies or decks take that space. I've also added window standards that I found to meet objective requirements to help guide privacy standards for an ADU on the second level. There was discussion about having 8-foot tall fencing. And I think one of the comments that we got from the member of the public that submitted some lengthy thoughts on this was the appropriateness of 8-foot tall fencing on the front yard. As I've discussed previously, an 800 square foot ADU does not have a front setback. So I believe that the 8-foot fencing was intended to apply to the front property line with the intent to obscure the ADU that might occur that far. But I wanted to throw that out there because I do think that we've heard a couple times tonight relative to, we've heard a couple times tonight on different items, in fact, about the concerns for screening from the front.
Right.
And gentlemen in the back also raised landscaping in the front.
Right.
And so all of that combines to resolve some aesthetic concerns relative to the placement of the ADU, but then also is really been driven in previous conversations based on privacy.
Yeah, and
So-
the balance, go ahead.
So Brittany, one question I have is, so a 2-car garage is 400 square feet. So if you're just going to build an ADU on top of an existing garage, you're basically talking about a 400 square foot ADU. If you want it, if we have to provide for an 800 square feet, that means that they have to have a 4-car garage or build a 4-car garage. Am I missing, so what's a 400 square foot ADU?
Well, so one of the things that we heard at the study session is that it's not uncommon in Atherton for somebody to have a 6-car garage. And there is also no specification relative to parking standards. So it's not as simple as you would find in other jurisdictions where you say, oh, a 2-car garage is 400 square feet, a 4-car garage is 800 square feet. It's a little bit more varied here.
Yeah, I have a 700 square foot 2-car garage, but it holds 2 Austin Healey's and one and something else. So.
And so that's an example of how this would be very straightforward of a conversation pretty much anywhere else, but because Atherton has flexibility with parking and garage standards, and they have the capabilities of developing and storing large vehicles or a number of vehicles and collecting vehicles, you can't really rely on your typical garage here.
Well, I'm like Eric, so I understand that point, Brittany. I guess the question I was really asking, if people did only have a 2-car garage, is a 400 square foot ADU on top of it acceptable?
Yes.
Yeah, they can do anything they want under 800 square feet. And then above that, we're proposing putting a limit on the side.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say the challenge that we're trying to solve here is more for a 1,200 square foot over a 4,000 square foot garage, or a 1,200 square foot ADU over a 4,000 square foot garage.
Right. What we're talking about is if you have a 3,000 square foot garage, can you put a 3,000 square foot ADU on it? We're saying no.
And that might be a little bit of an exaggeration.
Yeah.
I haven't gone out personally to do a survey of how large garages are in Atherton, but it's part of the discussion that happened in May. And so I want to regroup and enable comment on it tonight.
Could you go into a little bit of detail and your thought process with the window standards?
Sure. Let me pull them up so I can refresh what I wrote.
And there were some good things we got on standards that other cities had that was part of our packet that I thought was pretty interesting. Well, I think it was Los Altos that had the minimum on the roof, the bottom of the window.
And I think it's an important issue, especially with something above a garage,
Right.
For privacy. So I just would like to know what you have in mind.
So I had wrote, new ADUs constructed above the ground floor shall also be designed to reasonably preserve the privacy of adjacent property owners. Appropriate design techniques to preserve privacy include obscured glazing, window placement above eye level, screening treatments, or locating windows towards the existing on-site residence.
Right.
So the strategy here was to give a collection of options
Mhm.
and not designate something specifically. Obscured glazing, screening treatments, this is some pretty broad flexibility for an applicant to
Glass
use.
blocks would be a consideration.
Right.
And then high-level windows.
And so the feedback from the planning commission, based on even public comment, can get more prescriptive, but this is intended to give you a starting point.
All right, thank you. That's a,
That's an important one. for
it is
sure.
really important.
Yeah. The-
So,
Go ahead, Tom.
so Brittany, I have one other comment about this. So I don't have the paragraph in front of me, but, reading the language, it just talks about, this would apply against garages. It doesn't say detached garages. And so I think we need to clarify that. I mean, conceivably, someone could decide that they're going to do a major addition on a house and that they're going to build a second floor above an existing garage and make it an ADU. And so the question is do these requirements here apply in that situation? And in that situation, the setback requirements for a house are what would kick in. And so this is a little bit more complex topic than we're sort of laying out here. At a minimum, we need to differentiate between attached garages and detached garages. And my sense is that most garages in Atherton are attached, not detached.
Well, so the way that this is framed is under the height requirement, section H of the draft ordinance. And that is because the allowance is for added height effectively to accommodate the ADU above the garage. It says a maximum height of 25 feet is allowed for a detached ADU located above a garage. So there is some reference to the detached ADU. A detached ADU is an ADU that isn't attached to the structure as previously defined. If we wanted to also add in a detachment for the garage, we can make that distinction.
Well, so I may have misread this, but you're saying that the 18-foot height limit applies to an attached garage
It's a 25-foot height limit that I've laid out here
for attached garage.
for a detached ADU located above a garage.
So it's-
Right, but
there's
but
two.
what would it be for an ADU that someone decides to build above an attached garage?
We don't have a distinction for that.
No, that's my point.
That's
We need some additional clarification for that situation. More people in Atherton have got attached garages than have detached garages.
What would be the requirement? So
18 feet.
18 feet.
We're not gonna give them more than that.
Right.
No, that's
So-
not right, Bob, because the point is under the current building codes, you can build up to 28 feet for the house.
Right.
I understand, Tom, but when you're in that 4-foot setback, right now, state law allows 18 feet, which is what I was trying to clarify. I couldn't remember whether it was
Yes.
18
that
or
is correct.
24. So you can't build an ADU over a garage, which is what we're talking about, and keep it under 18 feet. I don't believe. Well, maybe if the garage was built for Eric's car, I think he could have a very low ceiling, but for most people, you couldn't make that happen.
No, but if I came in and said, I want to build an addition to my house over my garage, right? I can build up to 28 feet.
But then you are
Correct.
constrained by the floor area, the maximum floor area.
Yeah, exactly. You have to deal with that. So again, I think that this needs a little bit more study.
Well, here's the thing on that. So let's talk about what we.
Can I make a distinction here? So you had asked about an attached garage and an ADU built immediately above it. Under the height provision, a maximum height of 25 feet or the allowed height of the zoning district, whichever is lower, is allowed for an accessory dwelling unit that is attached to the primary dwelling. So in the circumstance that you're laying out with the attached garage and an ADU above it, that would be 25 feet. And that is
Okay,
coming
so
from
that's,
state law.
That's state law.
That's state law. So what we're
Okay, and so-
trying to solve for is the detached garage with an ADU above it.
okay, and so what you're recommending is to basically use that same standard for the detached garage situation.
Yes.
Okay, I support that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. All right. Well, that was a good clarification too.
That helped me clarify it. Thank you.
All right, good. All right. Yeah, and the other thing about wanting them over garages is that it lowers the risk of having a 4-foot setback in front.
That's the goal.
Yeah, right. That's it. We never lose track of that. I mean, the things we want to do to keep things away from people falling out of the front door into traffic, would be nice to do. All right, very good. Okay. All right.
All right. Are we moving on to the next slide?
You know what? I think we're ready to fly.
Well, I think the next slide is heritage trees.
Well,
Another
excuse me,
favorite topic.
That sounds like a nosedive to me.
And to that point, at the study session, the planning commissioners and city council really did not come to alignment on this. And they were pointing back to staff for some direction and some assistance in coming up with something. So I have worked with Sally, our town arborist, to come up with a package of recommendations to give more of a foothold for comments to come from. And again, the objective is to incentivize compliance with the town's setbacks by providing some greater flexibility with the heritage tree ordinance for larger setback compliant ADUs. So the first thing we looked at is the TPC exception process, and working with the town arborist with what they felt comfortable with and offering an administrative process for an up to 8x exception in the R1A. So this means that this review process would be held concurrently with planning review. We do try and do that as much as possible. We would also potentially look at diminishing fees entirely for this process, but we would be looking at the project concurrently. It wouldn't require any sort of planning commission review. And then the other component relative to heritage trees is we wanted to make sure that we had some good faith removal language in there. The concern being that a property owner can submit an application for an ADU, get the tree removal, have the tree removed, but then never move forward with the ADU.
Right.
Because I should have prefaced this, any ADU that is 800 square feet or less doesn't require,
Right. It gets to go wherever it
is
wants.
it completely exempt from the heritage tree
And
ordinance.
My theory on that is if you deliberately move your ADU every 2 years, you can eliminate all trees on your property.
So the way that we've structured this language is by using language that we already have. We are pointing to timelines or construction timelines in chapter 15 of the municipal code that lay out if you are a certain square footage, you have to construct your project in X amount of time. Otherwise, you're subject to certain penalties. And then we also assert the potential penalties that you have for removing a tree without proper approvals. And so it's almost a double whammy. And we want to make sure that that's very clear for anybody that's reading our ADU ordinance, that might be something that they come up against.
Right.
So that's the heritage tree package that we're presenting for you.
That sounds pretty good. Paul, you've done a lot of the studies on this in your previous years here. Does that sound like something that works?
Yes.
Well, I'm just writing down timelines here. That was something, this timelines is something I would like to discuss further, not tonight, but just looking at, when you look at the size of lots and the timeline of construction in town, they have two different timelines for over an acre and I think under an acre. I forget exactly. I know I'm 1B. We have a shorter time period for construction, which is suitable. And I'm thinking that with ADUs and the square footage being so much less, do we consider a completely separate timeline there and not have it in line with say, even a 1B lot? Because I think, we need to be a little bit more restrictive in the timelines with ADUs just because of the size of them.
So the timeline for an ADU right now is 1 year.
Okay.
I can't tell you if we've been proactively enforcing that,
Mhm.
but I can say that frequently we do review a lot of ADUs that come in conjunction with a single family home. And in the housing element language, I know I've even seen us identify that we're about a 1-to-1 ratio with the number of single family home developments that we review and approve and the number of ADUs that we review and
Mhm.
approve. So I do think that that's consistently common,
All right.
that we would want to be mindful of how that might change course.
All right, what's your next dive in topic? Any?
Next steps.
All right.
So here we are at the planning commission. The next step would be for me to take this to the city council where they would consider the draft ordinance as well. Once an ordinance is adopted, it would then be sent to the state for review. That is part of the state law relative to ADU ordinances, that if the local jurisdiction adopts one, they have to get it certified by the state. Very similar to the process with housing element, but much less fun of a process. And then,
It's a little bit more of a black box when it gets there.
yeah.
All right.
So then the other thing I wanted to point out is, so then HCD reviews the ordinances. They, like some of the letter that I included in the attachment for Tiburon, they'll submit a letter. They'll tell us everything that we might need to change about the ordinance. That will send us back here to the planning commission for another round of changes. City council, we send it back to HCD. We keep going through that with the ultimate objective of having HCD certify our ordinance, so that way we can add it to the progress report that we're providing annually for our housing element goals and objectives to say, look, hey, we've had ongoing compliance with our program.
Yeah.
Next slide.
All right.
So just again, my recommendation is that we conclude the public hearing and then you pass a motion to recommend that the city council repeal and replaces the chapter in its entirety with specific amendments to chapter 17.36. This allows ADUs in public facilities and school districts, the PFF zone, which is consistent with state law, and then updating some of the definitions to be consistent with state law.
Yeah, I wanted to see if there is a proposed motion in the packet, right?
Yes.
All right.
In the staff report.
All right. I was just looking at something else. I didn't have it in front of me. All right, then I'll go ahead. Any other questions of the commissioner to the staff? All right, very good. Brittany passes, I think. It gets an
Thank you,
A.
Brittany. That was great.
It's not an easy subject.
We still have public comment.
All right, let's go ahead and open the public comment section, and I'll start with somebody in the room. You're up. Yeah, you're up. Go ahead.
I'll fly through this as well. So Brittany was very kind and sent me the 57 pages
Right.
of the proposed ordinance, which I did read and study, and I sent her 5 pages back
Right.
of comment.
I printed it
Yes.
out.
And she was very kind to send me a response today to those 5. I thought she did a great job.
Yes.
I really did. I applaud all the effort, and I really applaud the communication and the opportunity for input. So a few comments. First of all, deed restriction. You know, in this town, residents have typically been very opposed to deed restrictions because, you know, we don't know what's going to happen within 15 years in our lives. I think the deed restriction will be a deterrent to ADUs, not an enhancement. I know that we want to promote low income, but if I were putting a second ADU on, there's no way in the world I would ever agree to a 15-year deed restriction. I think that is just gonna be a big no in this town. Second, on the TPZ and heritage trees, well, we talked about Sally and her competence and her, the fact she's a pretty tough cookie, you know, earlier. I actually would suggest that you consider giving Sally 6 times diameter as an ability to approve, because I think with an ADU, There are two different ways to do the foundation.
Right.
One is slab, which is very, very little disruption to the land. You're within the building pad, which you can do anything with anyway. And the second is basement. I would distinguish between the two. I would allow her to have discretion for 6 times TPZ on slab, and then go to 8 times if you're doing basement. 8 times, I think people don't know what that means. It's 25 feet. And you have to have a fence around the protected tree anyway. So I don't see a problem with allowing her to go to 6 times. And the biggest problem we're going to have with ADUs on existing properties is trees.
Right.
So just a thought. There's one thing not discussed earlier that's in the ordinance, and it is a requirement to have separate metering for the ADU. PG&E does not require that. And we have just built an ADU. And we are not doing separate metering because it's expensive, it's more trenching. And quite frankly, it's pretty easy to divide the utility bill by square feet. So I think it's a mistake to require separate metering. Going to the garage issue, I think that you do need to distinguish between attached and detached. What is desired in this town? I've heard a number of friends say, I'd really, really like to put an ADU over my garage because my kids are coming back home from college. They want separation. I want separation. So they're very interested, but we've built 22 houses here in town. Most of ours have been detached.
That's right.
And
Many.
detached for newer homes can be within 10 feet.
Right.
And so the minimum height that you're going to need for a garage ADU is 25 feet. Because you have 10 feet for the existing garage, you need a 2 foot for the floor joist, you need 8 feet for the ADU minimum wall height. Then you got to have 4 to 5 feet for the roof.
Right.
That's 25 feet. So,
We're recommending 25, right? You're recommending 25, right? Yes.
but I just want to be sure you realize that for the detached garage, it's going to be 10 feet from the neighbor.
Right.
So you're going to allow 25 feet, which I favor, to be honest with you. But I also recognize you have to have a roof that's attractive, that has to be consistent with the house. And I fully applaud that.
Great.
All right. The next thing that I wanted to comment on is the fencing. So at the front.
Right.
And almost a year ago, I brought up to Rick DeGolia that we really should allow 8-foot fencing on the sides and the back, especially if you're going to have ADUs at 4-foot setback. But in the town, the rule has always been 6 feet in the front, but the unwritten rule has been you match your neighbor's fence, which is going to be plus or minus a few inches, 6 feet. My concern is if you put 8 feet at the front, you're going to have a hodgepodge. Because what's going to happen is anybody building a new construction home that has an ADU is going to want to go 10 feet. Let's be honest, for privacy.
Right.
But it's really for the privacy of the main house. And I think it would be a mistake to have this hodgepodge of front fencing through the town. You can already go higher on the gates, but the fence itself, I have some concerns about that. So some consideration. That really was the high level stuff that I wanted to bring up. And again, I thought that Brittany did a fabulous job.
Right.
And your comments have been spot on tonight. Thank you very much.
And thank you for taking the time to do that because I read through it and I went, oh, she really went through this thing.
All good
Really.
comments.
Yeah,
Thank
all
you.
good.
My pleasure.
Really
I hope
good.
it was helpful.
It was, it
Really
was.
good.
Good
Go ahead.
evening.
Hi.
I appreciate the work being done here and the work being done on behalf of the Atherton residents. Thank you tonight. There's a few little items that I
Go ahead,
have, and
introduce
I'll go fairly quickly.
Go ahead. and introduce
One,
yourself.
pardon me?
Go ahead and introduce yourself officially.
Oh, my introduction. Gerda Ungerman, 74 Laburnum in Atherton, 40-year resident plus. You are actually doing a design review. And I don't know that you've ever looked at design review. I've worked with design review in Highland Park, Illinois, and it's quite extensive.
Right.
So I just wanted to say that. And then I wanted in the definitions to think about aerial screening. That is a terminology. You don't need a shrub, you don't need a tree. You can do a trellis with a vine and get it quite high and beautiful aerial screening. And trees, of course, their canopy. The other item I'd like to address is the 800 square foot ADU that has a closer to a tree in your lot. What is it, Sally? 6X?
So if it's, can I talk?
Yeah.
If it's 800 square foot, then there is no requirement.
Because of the state law.
800 square foot or less, there's no tree regulations.
According to state law, not what we want, but what the
That's
state.
state
I
law.
see.
So we can't go against that. If it's more than, if it's 801 square feet or more, then it would be 10 times. Right now, it would be 10 times. Then you could apply for an exception down to 8 times. If you wanted less than 8 times, you would come to the planning commission.
Thank you. And I was thinking also the other terminology in definition is pier posts. You find out where the tree roots are
Right.
in their ground, and then you do a slab and you put piers in away from the tree.
Right.
And that needs to be attended to,
Right.
because that's all over Atherton for your ADUs. And thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for, you came in on Monday and you came in on Wednesday. I was here on Monday and you were there too. All right. So, then I wanted to ask a question about the foundational, because I thought raised pier is less impactful to the trees than slab.
I mean, it depends. I mean, I feel like people have different ideas of this, of the foundation. So a slab on grade would, you would still need to go down somewhat.
2 feet or
You
something,
know,
right?
you
Right.
still have to go down somewhat to do the slab.
Right.
A pier, you could locate the roots and then move the piers.
Right.
So it just,
Right.
and also, foundations depend on the soil, the site. So I'm not sure if we want to say you need to do it this way or this
Right.
way. I mean, her idea is that if you did slab, you would get this, but I don't think we should regulate what type of foundation
Right.
people
Yeah,
are.
because I know situations where we've asked for pier as a way to protect the tree.
That's when they did exploratory trenching
Right.
and then they found the roots. So then once they located the roots and they saw that they were large roots, then they could build the piers around the roots, because sometimes you can move the piers somewhat.
Right.
People do that all the time with the front fencing, and there's trees, they move the piers so they can avoid some of the roots, but, yeah.
All right, good. All right. Is there anybody else to speak on this item? Anybody raising their hand?
Eric,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
if Carol's still there, can I ask her a question?
Yeah, go ahead. Carol, Carol, come up.
Carol, the question I have is for the ADU over a garage, if it's a 10-foot setback, what's your thought of, we talked about, or Brittany talked about window treatment. What's your thoughts about restricting windows on a side where you'd be looking into a neighbor's yard?
I'm in favor. In fact, our ADU that we have built is at the back of the property. It's 4 feet from the property line, and there are no windows on the back.
Right.
0.
Now, as my understanding, we can't mandate that, or can we? I was thinking that the state law didn't allow us to do that mandate.
We have greater flexibility on the ADUs that are over 800 square feet.
I know, but on an 800 square foot ADU that's above a garage, how do we get around that? The state law doesn't require us to do it above a garage, right?
It wouldn't be that high. So let me go ahead and take a look back at the state law in terms of what they would allow.
Right.
Because the 800 square foot ADU is constrained by height requirements.
Okay.
As well as the 4-foot side setback.
Right. But
So-
So it would be 18 feet.
Well,
If I can comment
go ahead,
further, not having windows at ours is 1,025 square feet,
right.
but it's only one room depth. And so even though there are no windows on the back,
Yeah, there's
that's where the bedroom closet is, but the bedroom still has windows on the
Right.
side and the front.
Right.
So you're not saying there are no windows in the room. You're just not putting them at 4 feet or 10 feet
Right.
right on top of the neighbor.
Right.
You're still getting them on the side or the front.
Right. Well, and that I'm familiar with that, but there's also lots that have odd shapes where that would be something where they go, well, we want to have the windows out towards the view, and that view is right over the neighbor's yard, but that's all right. They'll get used to it. I just want to make sure on the what's required. So what might, let me ask it the way I'm thinking it. Well, that ought to be interesting. The way I'm thinking about it is since it's not, since I don't think it's required that we allow ADUs above a garage. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Since it is not required, we could theoretically have more flexibility on what we mandate with a above garage structure.
Yes, the hinge here is that it still has to be ministerial, meaning objective design standards. So there needs to be clarity for the applicant and what the requirement's going to be.
Right. And so that's where I like the Los Gatos statements about having minimum 5 foot bottom of the windows and there's things like that that say, okay, basically you're basically at some people's eye levels. But that would make it so your view is to the sky and not down unless you jump up and look out the window. So let's think through that, because I think that we have a lot more flexibility above garage, and we use it.
Geraldine, if I may,
Yes.
we have a section in our accessory structure code that specifies that accessory buildings and structures may include windows and or skylights, except that no windows or skylight opening that face the side or rear property line shall be located over 9 feet above the ground level. Currently, we have that as part of our accessory structure code, but it's not.
But that would not apply to an ADU.
That's not a, yeah.
So I'll leave it to you to give us some ideas on the best way to do that. But the Los Altos, is that what the group was? I saw Los Altos code on one of my packets that.
Tiburon.
Yeah. Oh, okay. I thought Los Gatos or Los Altos. Anyway, maybe it was Tiburon. That something like that is very specific to anything facing a neighbor would be very helpful. And then it would be something that would not be arbitrary. It would be, one of the elements. So I've been on 2 other planning commissions where you had design review, which gets pretty exciting. And I had to unlearn all my design review questions for this board. So we can embed design criteria that is enforceable into this rule.
So right now it does, in terms of appropriate design techniques to preserve privacy, locating windows toward the existing on-site residence is an option of the examples that are provided there. It could be a requirement if you wanted to shift it in that direction.
I don't think I want a requirement of where the windows are, other than requiring them where they can't be.
Okay.
All right. So, and I don't know, Tom and Bob, I don't know if you have thoughts on that too, Nancy. All right. So the idea would be that when you're facing the neighbor, you have restrictions of height of the starting point of the bottom of the window, or no window, and then that way we get to drive just one wall, probably one wall, maybe 2. If somebody sets if their garages, is there any situation where a garage would be in a corner of a home that would affect 2 neighbors or not? I can't.
Sure.
Speculative.
I think it's worth considering that it could be 2 sides of
Right.
an ADU, but
So
we don't have anything that's prohibiting skylights. So that is one way to get light into the unit, which is of principal concern, right? You want to make sure that the dwelling unit is actually habitable. And there are provisions that we can add in relative to location of the sill at no more above eye level. I think I know what you're referring to, so that you can still get a clear story window in.
Right.
Yep. But the intent is to just allow light to pass through, not to provide visibility.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Kind of like Eichler's used to have all across
Mhm.
the strip across the top.
Right.
Right. All right. Do you need, so what do you need from us now? Oh, hold on. Are there any more speakers?
Commissioner Polito's hand
Yeah,
is raised. No
let
more
me-
speakers.
Are there anybody, speakers? I want to close the public hearing. That's what-
Okay.
So I don't see any more speakers on this item, so I'm going to close the public hearing, bring it back to the commission for discussion and actions appropriate. Bob, you got something?
Yeah, I haven't built 22 houses, but I built 18. And we always had the windows that you're discussing with the eye level requirement when they face the neighbors. I think we adopted that from the Los Gatos statute, even though we were building in San Jose. I'm not sure we always got credit for it from the neighbors because they still were upset that we were building a two-story building on top of what used to be a one-story site. But I thought it was the right thing to do, and it should definitely be included in any ordinance we can include it in. But my main question is, and I'm a little confused, are our planning staff asking us to advance these standards right now to the city council for approval?
Yes, with amendments or modifications as you would like to see.
Well, to do a good job on that, we'll be here all night.
Yeah, I agree, Bob.
Yeah, that's what I was worried about going to the meeting. And then the downside is if we don't move it ahead, then they can't see it in their next meeting where they would move it ahead. And without standards, then we fall back to the state standard on ADUs, right?
At this time, as the state standards, there are certain state standards that we have to apply regardless.
Right.
Those would align with what's already in here. I think the nuances that we're stuck on is actually the local flavor to those standards to try and incentivize developers to build the town's preferred ADUs.
Yeah. So Bob, I'm not understanding. I thought we addressed the key issues. Were there other minor issues that we didn't go over?
No, that's not my point. From early in the documentation that I have, I thought we were considering a public hearing, proposing a public hearing to review these changes to these particular sections of our ordinance.
I thought the same thing, Bob.
But when I get to the final, the last page, they want us to say, city council, do this. And
Yeah.
I don't think I'm ready to do that without a lot more discussion and consideration.
Well, here's the thing. This is a public hearing and it's been noticed. So I interpreted that to mean that this was our section of the public hearing. And then ours is the leverage point for the town council to actually start dealing with the reality of it. Now, they're going to get a lot more interest of people interested. And if we saw anything here that is part of tonight that we absolutely were afraid would be a problem, I'd say not move ahead. But to the degree that, there'll be some wrestling around and adjusting and things like that at the city council level, I'm feeling comfortable right now that the staff has done the things I thought were the most critical things to deal with, that I was concerned about, and actually more thoroughly than I thought that we would be able to cover them and more concisely. So I don't see anything that's flawed in the adjustments we've made. The height on the detached and the questions about the windows. Now, are we talking about 25-foot height? Yes, we're saying 25 foot. So that's clarified. Are we saying the exact height of the windows that we're talking about? I'm relying on staff to present what our intent is to the city council, and then we probably need to give a little bit more direction on the fencing in terms of specifics on that.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're bringing up a lot of these things and I'm just wondering where we are and what our wiggle room is. I think I'm along the same lines of Bob, of not being completely comfortable with some of the details, but are those details that can be revisited by the council?
Yes.
Well, there's two things. First of all, everything that we send to everything, as we've seen on the housing plan, anything we propose, anything that we move to the city council could not happen at all. All right, so the one thing that will mess this process up is the train wreck. If this gets slowed down and we run into the housing plan, and all of a sudden we're sitting there with a train wreck in January or February with the ADU not solved and this not solved. So it's one of those things where this is so complex and interconnections are so complex. The chunks that we take off help clarify where we're going. And as long as
No, Eric, but I feel like what you're saying is, let's just kick the can down the road to the city council, even though we think, even though we haven't maybe reviewed this as thoroughly, vetted it as thoroughly as we should. And I don't,
here's the thing is,
I mean, you're more experienced than I am in this, but that doesn't strike me as the way we should do our job.
No, I'm talking about my sense is I've chewed this subject for a long time, you know, so I felt I was thinking that there'd be a lot more work coming into this meeting than we had. Because of all the loose, because I was I don't remember, I think you missed the joint meeting we had with the town council, you know, months ago. And at that joint meeting, it was a swirl. I mean, it was a total swirl, and all these points came out and they didn't get solved and they didn't get addressed. And I thought, oh man, when I saw this come, when I first saw the list, I said, oh man, we're going to do that again, because I lived through that the first time. And what I thought that staff has done is narrow it down to the focus areas that were, first of all, a lot of feedback's been put in. I mean, we had a lot of feedback on this process earlier, and that's boiled down in here. So the concerns about the visibility, the concern about privacy, the concern about fence height, every one of these items has been just like gnawed on, and I mean, we're down to the bone on this. It's not like there's any meat left. So I keep on saying, yeah, there you could go over this again, but I'm saying, what are we missing here? There was a question originally about whether we allow two ADUs, and that went around in a circle for like 35 minutes in that first meeting with the joints. Like, would you want two or not? And now it's very simple. It's directed by the state. So what are we missing? If you can tell me what we're missing, then I'll say I'm not ready. But being on this ride for a long time, I need to find a gas station and get out.
And so to answer your question, not having been on the commission when you were going through that process and then missing out on it as a resident, I don't feel well informed enough to know what we're missing. So you're asking me, what are we missing? That's what I'm not comfortable with. I don't know what we're missing. So that's where I stand right now.
Yeah.
And it's not a reflection on staff at all or any lack of details. It's probably part of me not being in on the process from the very beginning as a resident before I joined the committee. But I'm just personally not comfortable with where I'm at with a lot of the details. I don't know if that's right in line with what Bob was saying, but Bob, what you were saying about earlier about not being sure where this meeting was heading tonight, based on what we got, that's kind of where I was with you on that.
Right.
So just to chime in here, it seems to me a lot of what's in that document that staff has put together is really changing the language to comply with state law. So it's not really optional. You know, I mean, we could spend a lot of time going through paragraph by paragraph, but a lot of that is just state law. I do think that Brittany's slides frame the issues that are going to be uppermost in most residents' mind. And I think we've given the guidance of where the planning commission is on most of these. To me, I think the biggest surprise that's going to come at the city council meeting is the slide that says by law,
or ADUs.
Anybody with a 1 acre lot can have 3 ADUs. That's going to be a shocker.
That is a total shock to me. When I read that, I went, what? Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. So here's the thing. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, Bob, you use the term kicking the can down the road, and I'm kind of, I don't know if that's exactly it, but I'm torn between wanting to move this forward appropriately, and making sure that as far as timelines are concerned and things like that, that we're expediting things properly, but at the same time, having all the Ts crossed and the Is dotted and making sure that, and that's why I asked what kind of wiggle room we have moving forward for some of these details.
So I would say, in alignment with Commissioner Bryant pointed out, really the presentation is that wiggle room. The area that hasn't necessarily been given, where staff hasn't really been given direct feedback from any of the previous study sessions, and where we're trying to come up with a solution and presenting that to get recommendations here tonight that we can carry on with council. Because we do have applicants that check in with us regularly looking for guidance on what they can and cannot do. And in the adopted housing element, we were supposed to have already completed this by July of this year.
Gotcha.
So we are behind. We can certainly maybe run through each slide and the parameters behind them. I do have certain areas where it would be helpful to get specific clarification beyond the motion that I have in the staff report. So for example, with the maximum number of ADUs, we've discussed deed restrictions and heard about that. And I want to confirm that what the Planning Commission's recommendation is relative to that, if it's changed based on public testimony. Can you bring up, thank you. So if we could maybe run through that, that might give Commissioners Polito and Tonelli greater confidence in the recommendation. But yeah, 75% of what's in here is just reiterating state language.
Okay.
So.
There's also in our packet, comments from the reviewers on the individual items, right? That we modified based on their comments, correct?
That was
Yeah.
provided in, I think, the January 20th.
Right.
23rd, the January study session.
Right.
Which was pretty extensive.
I guess I'm more concerned about the 25% that does not bring us in, that has nothing to do with state law. That's the part where we have anything to say.
Well, we're talking,
So much of that has already either been given direction to staff or given to as direction to staff and is included in the ordinance. Or is some areas that I've called out here tonight where we could use some additional guidance. So next slide. Next one.
Well, Brittany, can you go back to that prior slide?
Sure.
So,
yeah.
So Brittany, your sense is that the bullet points in orange are the areas where you were looking for feedback from the Planning Commission, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And so we should, at a minimum, go through these right now and make sure that the commission and staff are in sync on these.
And yeah, and we did. And the ones in orange, I'm fine. I'm fine with. That's fine.
Okay, I'd still like to go through,
Okay.
just to make sure as you start considering a motion that we've really taken in all the discussion and the comments so that I'm clear.
all right.
Moving forward.
All right.
How now? So in this one, the key topic here is really the deed restriction program, and pursuing the one bonus ADU, making sure that there's this is already called out in the housing element. So that was discussed at Nuance. The twist here is that now it's a fourth ADU. It's not a third ADU. If the commission wants to raise any significant concerns relative to maintaining that program, that would be helpful to know now. And then additionally, whether or not the commission has any concerns relative to staff working on a deed restriction program.
The question I had on that was, does it have to be 15 years to make the T?
No.
15 years seems like a super long time to me. Let's think in terms of what's the requirement on the SB 9? Is it 2 years or 3?
3-year occupancy restriction on owners.
All right, so that would be aligned with the SB 9 kind of thinking, and that would be, that would show a commitment to it at the state level, and be reasonable for the first time it was being added or sold. So that 3-year window is, to me, is short enough to show commitment, but not long enough to create a burdensome deed restriction. And I don't know, what would anybody have a standard on that?
I will say that the typical standard for a deed restriction on low income units is usually in the 50-year, 35 to 50-year category. So 3 years is pretty short. Especially when you think about what I raised earlier with the nuances of trying to remove a deed restriction. That could take a year itself. 6 months to a year more.
So I have a basic, I'm sorry, I have a basic question, Brittany. What's in it for a homeowner to actually do a deed restriction? Why would they do it?
The deed restriction is for the benefit of the town to demonstrate to.
No, I understand that, but what's the benefit to the resident?
Well, I think it only applies to the bonus ADU, right?
Yeah, it would, the resident gets an extra ADU out of it.
Yeah, so if, I mean, Carol spoke to this, but just speaking for myself, if I had a 2-acre lot, it wouldn't be worth it to me to encumber the property just for one additional ADU when I can already do 3.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, the nuance of that. So I'm actually not for the deed restriction at all personally. But the nuance of that is for the community to actually have a plan for the prospect of low income housing. The state's going to look at it and say, okay, where's your apartment house? Or how do we know your ADUs are really going to be low income? So if I have a choice between apartment house and a deed restriction for a second ADU, and all the things that go along with second ADU, like where's the parking going to go and where's the traffic going to go and all these other things, I actually don't have a problem restricting that to low income. If you want to, the risk to the community from the standpoint of all those other things that we can't have control over is worth restricting to me. But
I understand that, but I still don't, it still doesn't make sense to me. I
Well,
can't imagine a landowner is going to do this.
But they don't have to.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. I wouldn't do it. And I think 90% of our residents wouldn't do it, but there might be a handful of people who maybe have a young relative that conceivably that deed restriction fits that individual's profile, so they do it. I don't see any problem giving them the option to do it if they're dumb enough to do it, or actually have the circumstances to justify it.
And the other area where you might see it more used is a developer who decides that they want to provide a 2 ADU unit on a brand new build. They tear down the French Provincial for $6 million and then put up a new place, and they put an ADU and a low income ADU to get the 3. And then they sell it to a buyer who doesn't have a problem with a limited restriction on it. But again, 15 years is a lot different market than a shorter term. So,
But I didn't follow your logic, Eric, that the 3 ADUs are a given. We're talking about a bonus ADU on a 2-acre lot.
or a third on a 1-acre lot.
No, they get 3 already.
Right. Maybe
That's
I'm
true.
confused, but
The bonus ADU would only apply in a 2-acre lot scenario.
right.
Well, yeah, there's a 2-acre lot scenario. Yeah, I don't see any. Yeah.
So if somebody wants to do it, let them do it.
Yeah.
But it's such a corner case.
Yeah, you're right. It is a corner.
I don't think it's worth spending
I thought we were
time
talking
on it.
I thought we was talking about 1-acre also. All right, well then, I don't see any reason for deed restriction at all.
All right, so this is good. Let's move on.
Okay, I've noted that. We'll come back and I'll let you know what you've decided when you make a motion.
Right, and if
Okay.
if that were a recommendation to the town council, they could come up with a reason that is another. reason to add
Exactly.
that. All right.
Okay, next category.
Can you go back to the
ADUs.
main-
Oh,
Okay, is this going through the main list? Is that what we're doing?
this is going through the topics where you have
Right.
most discretion, really.
Right.
ADUs above garage. So we talked about the 25 foot height limit. That to me seemed pretty clear. I think where I could use some further guidance is relative to the roof form. There was a lot of discussion early on about wanting to maybe distinguish between a flat roof or a gable roof. But then that seemed to segue into, well, we're comfortable with the 25-foot height limit because it's consistent with what would be allowed for an attached unit. So I just really wanted to revisit that and make sure that we were
As long as they're within
clear.
25 feet, I don't care what roof type they use.
Okay.
Well,
But
what I
then
was going to
with-
what
there
I was
was-
going to suggest, I'm sorry, what I was going to suggest, Brittany, is that we should have something that says that we would expect the roof form over the ADU in a garage to match the house on the site.
Yes, so that's currently included in the draft language.
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Right, good.
Okay, and then there wasn't really a lot of discussion about floor area
No.
exemption, so I'll move on to privacy. In here, it really was about the window standards and the 8-foot fencing. So with the window standards, I'm hearing that you want to, the motion should include reference to add language about clear story windows on walls that face adjacent properties or no windows at all.
Correct.
And the 8-foot fencing should be applied to the side and rear property lines, but not the front, or should be 6-foot tall fencing on the front.
I don't have a problem with the 8 foot all the way
Yeah,
around.
I don't either.
don't-
Okay.
What about you guys on the Nancy? Problem with
Yeah.
8 foot?
I don't
That's
really think, I don't think I care because the fact of the matter is if you're up a second story over a garage 10 feet from your neighbors, an 8-foot fence does nothing.
Yeah, that's true.
The one comment I'd make on this is that's a pretty big change in terms of the existing neighborhoods. You know, if you had 8 feet all the way around.
It is. I mean,
So-
it depends on the style too, because the 8 feet you see along Middlefield where they use it as a sound barrier, they have like lattice on the top 2 feet or top foot, so it looks open on the top, but it's still an 8-foot fence. So it goes back to this how we handle the effect on that. But the other
And
thing
again, we're only talking about in this topic, we're only talking about ADUs above garages, and I don't think 8 foot does anything. So why have
This is actually categorized just general screening, general privacy screening and landscape. So it says a solid 8-foot high fence shall be provided along the entire front, side, or rear property line adjacent to where an ADU is located. Fences shall be at the property line.
And so the nuance of that is that would apply to somebody who built one 4 feet away from the fence.
Correct.
At the front of the property.
That applies to all ADUs.
So that's not just above garages. That's 4-foot problem on the 800 square foot ones.
Yes.
Oh, you screwed me up there. I assumed we were talking about, the topic at the top of the slide.
No.
But if that's your preference, that it only applies to the ADU located above the garage, we can make that distinction right now.
Well,
That's not
Well, no, I think
specific.
it does no good for above garage.
Okay.
It could do a lot of good for an ADU 4 feet from my fence line.
Yeah, on this one, I mean, I'm sort of willing to punt on this one. I'd really like to hear from, like the Lindenwood homeowners team or group in terms of how they think about 8-foot fencing that might pop up randomly throughout the neighborhood.
And just to confirm, when I write the staff report for the city council and describe the discourse that happened tonight, I can clarify that there was discussion over the height of fencing, with specific concerns relative to a particular neighborhood, and clarify that. So it's set up for the council to discuss that specific nuance of it.
Yeah, we could make the motion with the idea that we're not making a specific recommendation on that, but we are asking for their continued feedback from the community on that issue.
Well, yeah, that you recommended staff's you recommended the motion, but you had some concerns relative to this.
Right. And I don't think Lindenwood's alone on that concern.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I agree with you, Eric. Reaching out to the neighborhood associations on this would be important.
Right. All right, what else on that page?
I think that's it for this page.
All right, good.
So here there was a request from the public to look at a lesser going from 8X to 6X, and even talking about the foundation type. I think that there was discussion back and forth with the town arborist. I'm not sure where we landed on that.
Yeah, so Sally, what about the flexibility down to 6 for you? Does that help you or make it your life harder because you gotta fight longer to get it closer to 8 on a specific property?
I mean, I don't think it hurts me.
I mean, if you don't approve 6, it comes to us, right?
Right.
If I don't approve 6, then yeah, that would have to come here. So it's a matter of, do you want those to come here?
If you were to approve them, all I would be doing is rubber stamping your request for an exception. So
Can I ask, for R1B, is it 8X as well, or is it 6X?
For R1B sites, the standard is 6X.
Yeah,
See, I would make them both the same.
right.
Yeah.
I would too.
I agree with that.
I do just want to point out, as wonderful of the town arborist as Sally is, there's no guarantee that she would be the town arborist tomorrow. And so you do need to make this recommendation
Without her.
without the context of
Sure,
Sally
right.
being excellent
Yeah,
at her
that's-
job.
That's right. Yeah, and besides, we keep on saying that she'll ask for more money and then we'll be stuck, you know?
So I mean, my recommendation is 8 times. So when Brittany writes her staff report, I'll probably want to include something about the issues with the 6X.
Why would your recommendation be 8X rather than 6? Given the fact that your flexibility would allow you to approve 6 down to 6X and you could say no.
Can I just make one comment?
Sure, hold on, hold on, I want to hear from Sally.
I mean, I thought the point was this is just to have a standard. So the standard would be 8 times or 6 times, but if you want to say that I could have the ability to go down to 6 times and still say no, then that's fine.
Well, but a big oak on an R1-B site is the same as a big oak on an R1-A site.
Right now, we have a distinction between the two sides of the
So
sides of the site.
The
So
only
we
reason we have the extinction is because the lots are typically smaller. So that's the only reason. It's not for arboricultural standards. It's just because the lots are smaller.
So that
No, but it still kills the tree.
I mean,
right?
yeah, so the point is, so in this process, they wouldn't have to submit anything for the 6X. So what I'm saying is that if we just have a standard, then they would just submit the plan. It would be no, for ADUs, you don't need a tree inventory or an arborist report or anything. So I don't have any background. So that I'm not sure what I'm trying to decide on.
Okay.
So I'm just having a plan. So the reason why we do the staff exception is that they have to submit the arborist report and they have to, explain how they're gonna build it and blah, 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 blah. Then I can review that. But if we're making a standard, I want it to be a standard where I don't have to review anything else.
I got it. Brittany, did you have a comment?
I would say that the angle we could take is that they still have to submit all of the required materials as part of that application, and so that you still get all of the review. You're just making the determination at the administrative level without taking it to planning commission. And we would look at,
I'm only laughing because this is how it was before. For any project, for every tree, I would have to do this. So that's why we went to the standard of, you don't have to submit all that. I'm talking about for any structure on the
So that
site.
makes it easier for
So
the
I'm only laughing because we went away from that
Because it was a lot of work
because it was
for
very
everybody.
staff time intensive.
Yeah.
Um,
So I would say on this one, we take Sally's recommendation, but bring this sort of thorough discussion up to the town
Sure.
council. Because it is this balance that we're trying to get is, the reason we had a difference was because it wasn't because we were giving an advantage to the R1Bs. It's because the R1Bs had a special case. And
Mhm.
so the R1As were not a special case. They were the standard. And then people were coming and saying, hey, you know what? I got a smaller lot. I got very less to do with, and I've got a building footprint that I can't fill out now because the tree is 40 years later and it's taken up half the yard. So they came up with a lot of good reasons to have an exception for the R1Bs. And that's why we approved that. And that's why even the tree group went along with that one. Yeah. So back to you, Tom, in terms of what's consistent. Consistent would be to keep it at 8 by, because that would be the standard for our R1A group. And then we would give it to the town council with the understanding that's why we're doing it. Now, if they wanted to change it because it provides better flexibility for placement for ADUs, which is where we're coming from on this. That's the thing is I worry about is that we don't give the flexibility on this the 6 by, then the person says, okay, fine, I'll put it 4 feet from the front of the yard. So I'm always looking at the downside of just not making it just a little bit more difficult. That creates everything we don't want on this whole process. Because that's what'll happen. Somebody will buy it and just say, okay, fine, watch this, boom, 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 we're done. And I got three ADUs 4 feet away from 3 corners of the property. And a big mansion in the middle.
Well, but so coming back then, so to me, it sounds like on the TPZ exceptions that this, what staff is recommending makes sense. So we should accept this so that anything less than 8X or less would not come to the planning commission.
Good. Did that work for you, Sally?
Yeah, so Brittany could also include, it would be up to council, but if they wanted to include information down to 6 times, I think that's better than just saying 6 times.
Okay.
Right,
See what
I
I'm
agree.
saying?
We
Plus-
will.
I liked your idea. It
Plus-
gave me nightmares of the past.
Plus, these are setback compliant ADUs, so they're not the 4 foot from the fence line. So if we say 8X and Sally can take them down to 6X in her judgment, I think that's cool.
Would you be comfortable with language relative to taking staff's recommendation, but ask that staff continue to work with the town arborist to see if a lesser buy is possible?
I don't know, Sally, is that all right with
Yeah,
you?
that seems fine.
Yeah,
Okay.
Is that all right with you? Bob,
Yes, yes.
Okay, cool. So make it so.
Okay.
I like that. Make it so.
I think that's it, right?
Yes, that's it.
Is that it?
That is it.
All right.
See,
Bob
you
and
were
I are
able
on
to
a
do
different
it.
time zone.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, no, I'm
All right,
sorry.
we got a couple more items, but we're gonna go through them quickly.
So the motion is in your staff report. And effectively what I have is that the formal motion is at the end on page 8. It reads, I move that the planning commission recommends city council determination determination of exemption and of secret exemption and recommend adoption of amendments to Atherton Municipal Code, Chapter 17.52, accessory dwelling units, 17.36, public facilities and school districts, and Chapter 17.60, definitions based on the findings and for the reasons outlined in the staff report, with the amendments to remove the deed restriction requirement, to add language relative to clear story and no windows on ADUs located above the garage and facing adjacent properties. And then to direct staff to continue to work with the town arborist to modify the tree protection zone exception process.
You missed the height, Brittany.
The height is already included in the language at 25 feet.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Plus, I don't think we're recommending removing the deed restriction. If some idiot wants the deed restriction, let him have it. I thought that's where we left off.
No, I thought we were saying it doesn't do any good either way. And it might make it so we didn't get the third unit where the person wants it. They get the third unit anyway. We're talking about a fourth. Is that what it is?
Yes.
Right,
Yes.
a fourth on 2 acres.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to do it, let them do
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I agree. A fourth, it disincentivizes 4, which I think is okay.
So we're back to keeping the deed restriction?
Yeah, the question is
Yeah,
how
on the
long.
4th unit, on 2 acres.
On fourth, 2 acres, but the only question I would have is have the very deliberate discussion at the town council level on how long.
Okay.
I think my stand on that still would be 15 is too long. I don't know about the rest of you.
I don't care.
All right. Well, I'll go with whatever we want to recommend. So I'm okay with it, but I think it needs to be highlighted.
Okay.
So we'll
So moved.
So, all right. So I've been waiting to say this all night. Thank you very much. All right.
I'll
So,
second.
all right, we got a motion and a second.
Who,
Roll call, please.
who was the motion? Sorry, I
Bob,
didn't get.
Bob did the
Bob,
motion.
okay. Second by Tonelli.
Yes.
Commissioner Polito,
Aye.
Commissioner Bryant,
Aye.
Commissioner Tonelli,
Yes.
Vice Chair Lerner,
Aye.
Chair Lane.
Absolutely, yes.
This motion passes as amended.
All right.
Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
All right. So, Brittany, you have an update on the staff report for what happened on Monday and where we go, and give us an overview?
Yes, just a quick update. We did have a in-person community workshop on the town's objective design standards for potential multifamily development sites on Monday.
Just a minute. Sally, thank you very much. All right.
Overall, I thought the discussion was really good.
Yeah.
I was, there was a very good turnout. And to be fair, many of the people there were either completely against multifamily housing in Atherton or were very upset that the town was looking at sites immediately adjacent to them or further on their street. And so there was a lot of venting of frustration over the housing element process in general, but I do feel that the attendees were able to come around and give constructive feedback that my team can turn into objective design standards. And I would say, generally speaking, a lot of what we heard is a preference that multifamily development conform to many of the existing residential standards for the existing lots. Fortunately, lots in Atherton are so large that that might be something that we can achieve. So we're definitely going back to the drawing board. We're looking at how to do that. The next meeting that we're going to have is a joint study session with the Planning Commission and the City Council. That's next Wednesday. It's 4 p.m. For the public that are watching this. That will be a hybrid meeting. So there will be a Zoom link available and attendees can come and participate in this room as well. The structure of that meeting is going to look a lot like what Monday night went. It's starting with basic development standards to just make sure that everybody has a common education in terms of the definitions we're using. So we'll talk about lot coverage, FAR, heights, setback requirements, and we have some nice visual aids to help get through that. And then we'll also be providing the commissioners and council members with a summary of the feedback that we heard. That'll be a little bit more robust than what I just gave you here. And all of that should be presented to you in a staff report by Friday.
I was there, by the way. I saw the process. Brittany and John and Ms. Ford and who's the other woman's name?
Tom.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Christabel.
Yes, four of them did a really great job of, first of all, laying out what we're stuck with. They didn't say it that way, but I said it that way later. And what kind of flexibility points we might have, along with getting feedback on, there was a lot of question about why, what was the standard for the site chosen? So that's still not clarified, and the criteria for that, and you know, people were concerned that there was a hat with, you know, people pulling the lots out of it. So there was a lot of concern about why those properties. So, and then around that was the staff did a really good job of saying, you know, if you were talking about having multifamily, you could make it look like a big house. And here's some examples. So they had actual pictures of big houses that had, you know, 6 units in it, or, you know, or 10 units in it. And it was saying that, you know, it can look like Atherton and be multifamily, and it can still have garages and things like that. So given the context of what our form of multifamily looked like, was really helpful to sort of center the conversation around, okay, what kind of standards do we want? Do we want to modify the setback? And the answer was no. We want the footprint to be the footprint in Atherton. Do we want to, and then the question about the density number, like the 10 with the bonus density things, which would move it up to 16 or 18, or 16, I guess, we're scared. And so then the question was, can it be less than 10? And then the bonus density gets it up to 10. So, you know, last part.
I'll be sure to cover that.
Yeah.
On the first,
Right.
because it is the density bonus program set forth by the state is really complicated.
Right.
The 16 unit example you just gave, that was based on a 20 dwelling unit per acre scenario. So actually at a 10 dwelling units unit per acre scenario, the additional unit that the bonus is really only 2 units.
That's what I thought too.
So it's not as drastic
Yeah.
going from 10 to
Yeah,
12 as it
that's-
is from going 10 to 18.
Yeah.
But those are
Brittany.
nuances. Oh.
Brittany, you know, I've raised that question, and I went off and looked at the legislation on that, and I don't think that's current. That,
What?
you know, the bonus density has changed.
So there's multiple levels of density bonus. It depends on how much affordable housing you
Right.
have included in your project.
You get a bonus on a bonus if you go for more affordable.
Right.
Yeah, but the way that I read that, Brittany, is, I mean, there's 3 tiers, and if a developer, to me, a developer would pick sort of the 24% of the total units being below market rate units, which would be on a 10 unit per acre density, would say, you know, if you rounded sort of down, it would be around 14 units.
Sure. So the range, if you will, is if you do a standard 20% inclusionary, you can get a 15% increase, which at a 10 dwelling unit per acre rounds up to 2 units. And that's how you get to 12. But at the other end of the scale, you could do 100% affordable housing development, and your density bonus is much larger than those 2 units. So there's notches ever in between. But when we're talking at the lowest, which is kind of the baseline inclusionary standard, that's not as drastic as additional housing affordable units. And so that's why I want to make sure that when we talk about it, that it's backed up with the state law, that we're looking at it, that it's been published, and so we can all digest it and have that conversation rather than having an informal chat about it during staff report.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Brittany. But the other thing I would say is that decision's not under the control of the town.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So before I'm not totally done with my report, because I do want to make sure that everybody is also aware that we have a workshop number 2 that's going to be scheduled for November 13th. That's going to be an in-person workshop because we're hoping to present the development standards to the public for the first time in somewhat of an open house format. And then the other thing I want to make sure that you're aware of is on the calendar is on November 8th. There is a virtual question and answer town hall that I'll be hosting, I believe, with the city manager, just to let people who are new to the housing element process and haven't been with the town through all of the hearings and meetings for the past 2 years now, come and ask questions. Why didn't you look at El Camino Real as an example? Why haven't you done annexation as an example? I think that format was a little bit of our workshop on Monday, and I think it helped get to the point where we were able to get some good feedback on the actual design standards, and that venting is going to be helpful.
So Brittany, I was not at the meeting on Monday, but the two things that I'm sure probably got talked about, but that I'd really like to understand is parking standards and per unit. And then the second thing is, where's the town at in terms of how big do they think these units should be? I mean, if I think about market rate units selling for multi-million dollars, those are 2,000 square feet. And so we need to sort of come to grips with that to understand what the actual implication is going to be on a plan.
And that was talked about, and
Yeah.
there was people talked about the unit size in not in terms of market pricing, but in terms of usability. And they were also talking about everything you were talking about. So yeah.
Yeah, and that came as feedback. That was not something that our team led with. Our team did not say, hey, we're aiming for an average unit size of 1,750 square feet. We haven't put that kind of information out there. Really, what we're trying to just get out right now is, hey, what's the building envelope? What are the setbacks? What do you want the massing to look like? What we need to hear in order to help then further shape that is what you're pointing out is, okay, well, what are the unit sizes that we're doing? We did touch on parking relative to location of parking. We heard a lot of people prefer that it be underground, accessed from the side or the rear. So how do we basically, after we get feedback from you next week, our charge is to go back and figure out how to make it all work.
Right. And there's other issues that came up, like how many doors can be towards the face, towards the street, what kind of format, can we have a courtyard format and or not? And so there were different style discussions in terms of the presentation, as well as the question about noise and whether or not there's pools and whether or not there's sport courts and all these other things that relate to when you have more density, what kind of restrictions you can put on, particularly since so far the state law doesn't require a pool.
There was a recommendation for design review, a
For
design review board.
Oh.
So I'm sure you'll have comments on that too. But
So again, Brittany, I think there's two other requirements or constraints that I think should be in this conversation. One is the point that every bedroom has to have a window that can be escaped from, and that has a clear implication on the floor plan and how the building works. The second thing that I think would be helpful is if we had the input from the fire department in terms of their expectations of being able to get a fire truck all the way around a structure.
Yeah.
So those all are going to significantly impact the design.
as you're traveling, please don't hesitate to just brainstorm a list of things and send them to me.
Okay.
Rattle them off at the meeting next week. Send them to me by email, whatever you prefer.
Drainage was an issue
This
that
is
came up.
this is the time to just do a brain dump on all things multifamily that you want us to take a look at and lead with.
Right. I was out of town for the Monday meeting, so I couldn't attend, but I want to thank our chair, Roy Orbison, for showing up and
It's
give-
actually Elvis.
and giving us
but yeah.
feedback.
It's a little bit Orbison hair do, but it's Elvis. When I put it back on, it's definitely more Orbisy. All right, but Brittany, did you have more that you
No,
wanted to-
that concludes my report. I'll
We've
stop
got another
talking.
hour, so go ahead.
No, it's fine. I want to
All
go
right.
home.
Rhoda, did you have something?
Nothing except we don't have a regular planning commission meeting for November. We have the next commission meeting on December 13th at 6
And we
p.m.
have a joint.
We have a
session
joint
on
study
the-
session on November 1st,
Right, November 1st at 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Right.
That's right.
So So we are going to be pretty active. We'll be a little bit more normal, above normal in our activity because of the November meeting on the 1st.
And I do want to point out that we are putting a lot of meetings out there right now for the housing element with the objective of trying not to schedule meetings during the holidays.
Right.
So that's why it may feel like
Right.
a lot, but there's a goal here.
Right. Well,
Okay.
the goal is, in my mind, is to get a plan in place so we have something to manage to, because right now we're wide open. I mean, as I didn't talk until the very end. I had a comment that I wanted to make as a citizen, which was, not having a plan is a plan, and it's a very dangerous one. Builder's remedy and state direction are real issues to deal with as this community in particular. I don't know if I didn't forward it out to everyone, but maybe Roddy, you could forward out the article on Coronado that I sent you. There's a recent thing in Coronado where Coronado was
Oh, yes,
very much
builder's remedy.
very loud about, we don't have to comply to this. We're not going to comply with this thing because it just doesn't fit our community, and we're just going to wait until it works its way through the state, and we know that it's going to be okay. Well, it wasn't okay for them. What happened was that they were told by the state that they didn't comply, and there was probably a threat of the state suing them or doing whatever the next steps were. And they said, okay, we give up. And then they had to accept all the direction of the state, the way the state wanted it, which was much more density where they wouldn't have put it. And if they didn't control their own future. And so they ended up playing hardball and losing. And frankly, we're on that bubble, and it's been 2.5 years or almost 3 that we've been looking at this. And at some point, the state's going to say, okay, you guys just don't get it. And that would be if people thought that the meetings have been rough up until now, boy, when we would be stuck with some of those recommendations of R40 here and R40 there and R40 there, it would not be good for.
Well, the difference is we're at least appearing to attempt to comply. I guess there's some legitimate attempt to comply. I'm kind of curious who ended up buying 170 Atherton Avenue, because I still think that's a classic place for a builder's remedy project. But
right.
At any rate, we're subject to, we've got some danger.
Right.
And based on that, I make a motion, we adjourn.
I second.
Boy, that's dangerous, but I'll take a voice vote on this one. And you guys on the phone, you can do a voice independently so that we can hear you, because Zoom will make you only one count. So Bob, are you in favor of that?
Yes, I am.
And Tom?
Yes.
And all on the room, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay, we're out of here. All right. And
Good night, all.
Thank you very much.
Good night. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Roy.
Hey, I